This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to your very own safari this morning. Welcome to WildEarth. The sun is shining, it has risen. What a beautiful scene we have here this morning. And what I've done this morning is I've kind of I'm heading towards a boundary. The tracks of the Birmingham Pride were crossing out across here yesterday morning, and I'm really hoping they come back. It's a good time to just stop and listen, see if there aren't tracks anywhere coming in. But welcome to you all to your very own live safari, live from the African bush. Welcome back, everybody, and what a beautiful spot this morning. I mean, we watched one of the most incredible sunsets that I can remember in the past few weeks last night, and what a beautiful sunrise, what a beautiful spot as well, with trees in the background. The birds are shouting and calling and flying around. There's so many of them flying around. It is really beautiful. But good morning, I'm Daniel Fisher, and on camera this morning we've got BK. And as I've mentioned, we're going to be looking for the Birmingham Pride this morning. I mean, they crossed out yesterday morning, and I'm hoping that last night that they came back. Really hoping to maybe even hear some roaring in the background. I mean, there's huge flocks of European bee-eaters flying around. The red-billed quailias are flying around. They are incredibly difficult to find. Oh, we've got some here, actually. BK's done a really good job at finding them. Only a small group of them here, and you'll see they kind of fly down into the grass. They're feeding on the little grass seeds that they are at the moment, and you'll see them in these huge flocks, hundreds of them, sometimes even thousands of them. And they are in fact the most abundant bird in the world. And particularly here, we've kind of come to this open area, a little bit elevated, beautiful place to watch the sunrise, and we're going to keep going towards a boundary of ours where we're going to be looking for those tracks. But these quailias, particularly at this time of year, absolutely love this area, nice and open, not too many trees around, and they feed on the grass, and you'll see them almost moving in like these waves. They kind of feed and feed and feed, and then let's see if this flock doesn't come and land in this tree. No, but you saw them kind of flying by. VK did try. I mean, it's very difficult. They're tiny little birds, and I mean, that wasn't even the biggest flock. But you'll see them kind of feeding, and they take cues from each other. So you'll see a whole group, maybe a couple of hundred of them feeding, and ones at the back will try and get to the front. So they kind of fly up at the back to the front, and it's almost this wave motion, because obviously once the ones in the back end up in the front, the ones that were in the front are now at the back, and they do the same thing, kind of creating this beautiful wave. So I'll try and get some of that on camera this morning if we're very lucky. So I'm going to keep going along this road until we hit the boundary, and that's going to be our best shot at finding the Birmingham Pride this morning and see if tracks are coming in. In the meantime, I'm going to send you over to Tswalu rather, with their introduction.
Good morning and welcome to Tswalu. This morning we've got a little chilly 18 degrees with a nice little chilly wind. My name's Deirdre, and on camera with me this morning is Owen. Our plan for this morning, because it's a little bit windy, is to go and start looking at some of the sheltered areas, try and find some of the smaller animals and see how we go. They did say 1% chance of rain, and if I look at that cloud, that's the 1% cloud in the sky that you're watching there at the sunrise this morning. So a really, really beautiful day. The birds are calling, which is always a good sign. I've heard quite a lot this morning. So courtesy of Kyle, I've got some missions. He tells me I must check up on this bird nest and this bird nest and this bird nest, and hopefully there is one that we've got some good news in. We'll go and have a look there this morning. But don't forget to send your questions so that we can participate and have you on drive with us the whole morning. Just look at those colors. It's just getting brighter and brighter. the next week here at Tswalu, we're expecting a nice little heat wave. Monday it's going to be quite toasty by 9 o'clock in the morning. But we'll see how we go. The animals cope, so can we. This colours just change second after second after second. Did you hear that, Owen? We've just heard something scuttling around in the bush on our right-hand side, so we're going to send you across to Tristan at Djuma. We'll investigate.
Well, really good to hear that Deirdre is out and about on drive. It's been a while since I've seen Deirdre, so good to have her out. As you can see, we're with our wildebeest herd on quarantine, which is always a good place to start. There's a very good reason why I've stopped there, which I'll get into shortly. My name is Tristan. On camera, I've got Theo this morning, and it is a very warm welcome to Djuma. And I say very warm because the sun has just come out, and it's already about 4 billion degrees this morning. So it's going to be an interesting morning in terms of how hot it's going to get. It's supposed to be much warmer than yesterday and even the day before. So we'll see how that goes. Anyway, the reason why I've stopped with the wildebeest is just because at first there's only 3 wildebeest left here that can still give birth. The rest have already dropped. And there was one that was walking, and I thought for a second I saw hooves sticking out, but actually it's its tail. Its tail's got a kinked hair that sticks straight backwards, and so it looked just like a little set of hooves that was sticking out. So I thought maybe, just maybe, there was one that was about to give birth. But alas, I've checked all of the pregnant females. There's no sign of little hooves sticking out. In fact, the pregnant ones don't even look as though they're that swollen yet. So I think it'll be a couple of days still until they give birth. But it's always worth checking. With the wildebeest, we know that we have 4 little ones at the moment, and so we're expecting another 3 fairly shortly. Now, the plan for this morning from my side is not going to be to sit with the wildebeest all day, particularly because there's no sign of any of them giving birth right now. But we're going to probably head to the south. And the reason why I want to head south is that I know little Lunga was seen last night south of our boundary. But when I was following the lionesses, the guinea fowl were going crazy at Twin Dams. And Twin Dams is a place where Sabi often likes to come and drink. Even Shasha comes that way, and maybe even Lunga. So it was just kind of a worthwhile place to go look. You never know, maybe even Mulawati is around that area. So I thought it would be a good place just to go scratch around for a little bit, just to see if there's any sign of them. And then from there head eastwards and just check around really what's going on. The other thing that we're going to try and do today is trying to avoid being squished by an elephant, because last night I had a dream that I was killed by an elephant. So that's going to be priority number 1, is to try and stay alive and not get myself trampled and flattened by an ellie. Always horrible when you dream those kinds of things. It happens every now and then. You two, why are you fighting so much? And that's how it gets solved. So that's 2 youngsters that are play fighting, and they got too close to the little ones. So Mom has stepped in and said, enough with you two. I'm going to chase you both, and you stop this. And there we go. All sorted out. And then you see how she comes back to her little one. Cute. These little ones are all legs. Very, very, very cute. All right, I think let's leave our wildebeest herd to themselves. It's going to get very hot very quickly this morning, so we're going to try and utilize this cooler period that we have now to try and find some semblance of activity. And so while we do that, let's send you across to Trish so she can say good morning.
Listen to these wonderful, wonderful sounds. Egyptian geese, blacksmith lapwings here at Treehouse Dam. Isn't it beautiful? What a wonderful start to this morning. Hi everyone, it's me, Trishala, and I have Johan on camera with me this morning on Djuma Game Reserve in the Sabi Sands. We are just enjoying the sights and sounds for the moment. We had a cinnamon-breasted bunting come down to drink. We've got the hammerkop moving around. And some very, very noisy Egyptian geese. The noisier of the two is usually the female, and the male has a less noisy, less loud call. His is more of like a hiss. And our hippo is in the dam too. Good morning, hippo. Says I don't want to be seen. Oh, wasn't that a beautiful reveal? So peaceful. Again, one of those stunning mornings, and I'm sure it'll be a stunning evening too. Jen, you say someone's honking in the background. Yes, Jen, I've stopped in the middle of the road. All the game drive vehicles are honking behind me. No, it's just the Egyptian geese giving their usual story in the morning. At this time and earlier is the best time for these birds to be able to call. In fact, for all the birds to call, because they need their call to be heard well and to travel quite a distance. And then any later than this, the ground and the air, everything will heat up, and that sound won't travel as well as it does in that band of cool air that's above the ground at the moment. So they'll keep it going for a little bit. They're advertising their presence and their space. And also being able to call early in the morning if you're a male signals that you made it through the night and you still have all the strength to do a very lovely call in the morning. Risky behavior is always attractive, biologically or otherwise. Anyway, so we've just come from the den. We've just got a few more days left of our stint, Tristan and I. So I was hoping that we'd be able to see the June's cub, but it seems that we're unlucky at the den this morning. But that's okay, because I'm actually wondering if maybe she's moved the cubs. Remember yesterday yesterday we saw them in the afternoon? Yes. Everything melts into one day here. And that afternoon we didn't see June, but she could still be around. It's just that after she was harassed by Hart, I'm going to just check the Shibama Road den, which is around the corner, because she has used it in the past. Anyway, off I go to enjoy the morning.
Welcome back, everybody. Now, there was quite a large flock of European bee-eaters in here, and they were kind of chased away mostly by this woodlands kingfisher. But there's still a few left in that tree. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to just stop and listen for a moment. The European bee-eaters have got a beautiful call, and that woodlands kingfisher can also be incredibly vocal. Oh, well, I thought that woodlands kingfisher was going to call for us, but it didn't do it in the end. I'm really glad some of the European bee-eaters actually stuck around in that woodlands kingfisher didn't chase them away. But it's still a beautiful scene. I mean, the woodlands kingfisher are calling all over the place, and now the one sits at the top of the tree, and we're kind of waiting for it to call, but it won't. I'm going to keep going along the boundary here, seeing if there aren't tracks of pride crossing in.
One of my favourite parts about being in the bush is to learn the tracking part of it, so just to find out who's been where, and especially in the morning, this nice morning newspaper that we have here. Just reading the newspaper, we're going to ask Owen to come in on these little tracks here. So it doesn't look like much, but there's a little bit of a tail drag there, and you look on either side of the track and you've got at least 1 foot, another foot, the foot in the middle, and then the last foot comes through and makes another little stripe in the middle. And this was a scorpion that moved last night across there, out on his nightly hunt. There were lots of insects out last night, so it was a good feeding opportunity. Then the next nocturnal animal that we can see here, you may or may not have seen one yet from Tswalu, but it's called a spring hare. So it's actually a rodent, but it looks more like a rabbit, more like a kangaroo, standing about this high and jumping on their 2 hind legs. So you can actually see, here's the jump. It actually sat down there. As it jumped, there's the tail. It jumped there, jumped there, jumped there, and went on its merry way to go and get some grass shoots on that side. Then, probably one of the nicer, Owen says looks like quite a clear track for the camera, is a porcupine. Came all the way down here. So, are you able to see this one, Owen? So the porcupine's got lots of little pads. It's got, sometimes you can count 5, 6, 7 pads, plus 5 toes. Plus, because they're digging animals, you often see their claws as well. I'll show you a picture in our next segment so that you can understand the little porcupine. Very short little legs. So you can see here, you can just imagine this little porcupine shuffling along last night. But what we've also seen is that this was a mummy porcupine, because just on this side, not too clear, but a baby porcupine. So out foraging with mum. Just going here. And then at another point last night, they weren't all here all at the same time, but you'd age them by which track overlaps who. There was a brown hyena that came along here. A little bit less definition in the front of the feet because they've got lots of hairs on their toe pads. So they just make, they just flick the sand up as they go. So a nice brown hyena. So just in one little patch, a porcupine. I'm making up my own words. A porcupine, a spring hare, a scorpion, and a brown hyena. So what did I say? A scorpion. We're making our own animals from last night. So all of these we would hope to find on our afternoon safari. But not now, they've all gone to bed. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So I don't know, Owen, if I hold it here. So we're talking about the porcupine. There you can see we've got the pads, so 5 little pads, 5 little toes, and then the claws on the porcupine. We're going to send you across to Kim and see what she has for the morning.
So we have had our own share of tracks this morning. We have followed a set of female leopard tracks all the way from the lodge to this beautiful watering hole where we found a fish eagle eating. We can't quite what it is, but this watering hole that we're sitting at does have a lot of fish in it. We can see them moving around as we sit here. Some beautiful noises for the morning. Welcome to andBeyond Phinda. I'm Kim, and behind the camera today we've got Glenn. So we did come out looking for leopard, and I was very excited to see those leopard tracks. Oh, and the fish eagle's flying. If we can get him. There he goes. Obviously content that he's now finished his meal. Wow, it's beautiful. So generally a fish eagle would catch its meal and actually sit up in a tree like that to eat it. It's quite interesting seeing him sitting on the ground. Here's a grey heron. Oh, landing on the hippo. So for herons, it's quite a good place to sit on the back of a hippo like that, because there are often lots of little creatures that the heron would eat that hang about hippos, like little terrapins, little frogs, little platana frogs, and little fish that all feed off little parasites and dead skin cells on the hippos. So those are all prey species of the grey heron. So it's quite a clever adaptation that he's realized that sitting on the back of a hippo is quite a good idea. Some beautiful bird calls, but they are kind of drowned out by the rather incessant call of the Egyptian goose, unfortunately. There's a lot going on. We've got white-faced whistling ducks at the back next to a yellow-billed stork. There's loads of bird life here this morning. Oh, and the crocodile fishing. It's quite cool. So we're going to see if we can see this crocodile hunting again. Wow, and the hammercorp also, you see all those fish bubbling out as he flies along the surface of the water. There's a crocodile going again. Oh my gosh, the action here is non-stop. Everyone's doing something exciting. I don't really know where to look, and I think Glenn doesn't know where to point the camera. It's just too much going on. But I think let's try and show you that crocodile because it's pretty cool. There we go. I can't quite work out what they do, but often one of their feet or claws come out the water, and it's as if they do a bit of a roll, and then somehow, I don't know, scare the fish towards their mouth, and then snap up a whole bunch of them. There we go again. There we go, you got some that time. Quite amazing. Oh, and another one behind him is also going for it. Sure. And with the amount of fish in these little dams, and that's also another sad thing. Yesterday, where we were sitting next to that dry watering hole, and I was saying how we really need the rain. So last night we were rained out, but it was a very, very welcome downpour. And this watering hole is also getting smaller and smaller in size, and obviously that means that the fish have less and less space to swim around, and they're all quite sure, but I think there's about 3 crocodiles there hunting. But I mean, they don't have anywhere to get away from the crocodiles, so it's like shooting fish in a barrel, so to say. It's a little bit unfair for the fish, but that's just the way of nature, I suppose. The season's a little bit late, the rain. Scotty, oh wow, sorry, there's an oxpecker that's just landed on that hippo, which is quite cool, in the middle of the water. Scotty, yes, there would be some larger fish in this watering hole. Majority of the fish that we can see flapping above the surface are little tilapias. They're quite small, and because there's so many of them and because the watering hole doesn't allow it because it's too small, they will remain quite small. They can get quite big if they've got the space to do it, but they'll stay quite small. But the biggest fish that we would get in here are barbel, or a catfish, similar to a catfish, and they can get pretty big. So those will be the biggest that we've got in watering holes like this. So that oxpecker there will be trying to find some ticks. I think most ticks would probably get drowned off of hippos during their day sitting in the water, but these guys will have been out grazing all night long, so it's very possible that they will have gained some ticks from their night of grazing, and that oxpecker is just taking advantage of that. The hippos now will just be kind of settling down after their night of grazing. The daytime is their day of, or their time for resting, and nighttime is where they find their food. Wow, there's some lightning, can you believe it, again in the background. Hopefully we don't get rained out like we did last night, but like I said, we actually can't not hope for rain because we actually need it pretty desperately here on Phinda. There are a few little drops starting to come down, but looking above us, it doesn't look too ominous, so I think we should be all right. Should be able to, tough it out. What a beautiful start to the morning. Just such a hubbub of activity around this watering hole. Kingfishers. There's kingfishers flying right towards us. Oh, there they go. We may spend a little bit more time at this watering hole and see if anything else exciting happens. And also the leopard tracks did come straight towards this watering hole, so I think we're going to have a little bit of a careful look around the edges of the bush here. But for now, we'll send you over to Deirdre with her Thompson's gazelles.
So have a look at that. They haven't had their morning coffee yet. As we drove up towards them, there were actually more standing, and now they've all just decided, well, we're going to just carry on lying down. The sun hasn't come up over the mountain just yet, so it's not warm enough. They've decided that they're just having a little bit of a sleep in this morning. This is a Springbuck. So what we're going to have a look at, they're beautiful, beautiful antelope. I know none of the other properties have the opportunity to show you Springbuck because they are arid area animals, but if Owen zooms in nicely to that facial area, you can actually see quite a distinct line between their eye going all the way down to their nose. And that helps them in this environment to actually reduce the glare from the sun. You can imagine when you're sitting at 40 degrees, 45 degrees, sometimes in summer, and there's very little cover, very little shade, and you're out in the open areas, there's going to be lots of glare that comes up from the sand, and that will actually help reflect that away from the eyes. Also, the white on the face will also reflect heat away from the face, and very important for them also the fact that the underside is white. We're going to have a look at the one a little bit further on the right hand side. It's busy grooming itself there, probably just realigning all the little hairs. You can actually see the underside is also white, and that's very often also to reflect heat away from a lot of the vital organs, so help them in thermoregulation. Little bit of a patch of white on the rump. That's when they do start pronking. They actually open up that area across the back, and then those white hairs come out. At this stage, without their coffee and without their caffeine fix this morning, they are definitely not going to be pronking. They look like they're they are really enjoying their nap. So that one on the right, the only one that's standing, also interesting to note that their hindquarters, the back area, is actually higher than their front quarters. And very often in antelope, like I know Tristan was having a look at the wildebeest this morning, you have the higher shoulder and the lower back, and that's a more energy efficient body shape to have if you're going to travel and move long distances. But for them, those hindquarters will help them with their pronking and their jumping. It's grooming nicely there. You see that one? You. So don't forget to ask us any questions if you've got any questions about Springbuck or anything that we have at Tswalu. Roger, that's a very good question. Roger's asking if these are all males. So with Springbuck, both male and female have horns, which is, it's not unusual in antelope, but very often antelope that live mostly in the open areas. The reason why both male and female will have horns is so that the females can protect the lambs. So we have had quite a lot of lambs being born already, and the female will hide that little lamb and it will lie sort of very, very still during the day, and then she'll only keep going back to feed it. But if there's the threat of jackal, for them jackal and cheetah is probably their biggest two threats, as well as wild dog. But normally with wild dog and cheetah they're going to run away, but with the jackal they can potentially defend their youngster using those horns. So if Owen shows you the two different ones, the male's horns generally tend to be much thicker at the base. I'll just try and see if I can find you a male so that we can get Owen onto. Okay, so Owen's got a male there in the picture. So nice thick horns, nice round curve, and then the females tend to have much thinner, smaller horns. Hopefully, Roger, that answers your question. In these groups, you'll have majority females, and then there'll be one dominant ram. So with this size, it's a ram and a ewe. Anything when you go bigger, when you're going towards the Ngala, then you're going up to a bull, and then a kudu, a cow, and upwards. So these are rams and ewes. And then they will have a lamb. Beautiful. Sometimes in the heat of the day, if they're lying down, they actually orientate their body from the sun. Mariana, I absolutely agree with you. They are beautiful antelope and often not really given much credit because in the arid areas they're relatively common. But hopefully one of the slots will actually get to show you how they jump like popcorn. It's amazing. Sometimes it's just a little bit of rain or a spattering, or the youngsters decide that it's time to start bouncing around, and they do what's called tronking. So they stiffen all four legs and they bounce up and down, and at the same time flare those white hairs at the back, and it sometimes looks like the whole group is like popcorn. Really, really awesome. Hopefully we'll be able to show you that one of these days. Oh, that sun is just peeping. It's starting, it's thinking about it, which also means the meerkats might start thinking about it. We might have to go and have a look and see if we can catch up with one of our groups of meerkats this morning. Just beautiful. So while we head off and go and see if the meerkats decide that they also want to wake up and have had their coffee, we're going to send you over to Trish in Djuma.
Oh, Deirdre, all the best with finding the meerkats. I have a little friend here. It is a squirrel. It's being very, very, very cute this morning. I think it looks really pretty against the blue sky, and such a solid blue sky. And I was hoping, so this is the big dead leadwood that I really like on Twin Dams Road. And I said to you that these lead would stand for many, 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 many years, hundreds of years. And that's because they offer lots of nesting cavities for many, many animals. Not just birds, but squirrels too. And I was hoping there's a hole right next to this one that maybe it's got some little ones in there. Because little squirrels are very cute, but also very naughty. Somehow I feel like maybe it's just... Oh. I saw it take out some food from there. It's just... as it moves down. Okay, so there's definitely at least 2 squirrels in there because I saw one in the bottom part and then at the top as well. There's also one sunbathing on the bottom of the tree there. There we go. Just further up. There. He's so well camouflaged. Looks like a bat. Looks like somebody just threw this one onto the tree and then it stuck. And that, everyone, is how you should be sunbathing. Just find yourself a tree and get somebody to throw you on it. Hopefully you'll stick like this. Small bodies mean that animals will lose heat very quickly, but they can also get cold and overheat very quickly. So basically temperatures can change based on the environment with quite some speed. And when they just wake up and it's cool in the morning, the whole evening it was cool, they really got to sunbathe, get nice and warm. I just want to go back up to the hole that we were at first because I'm so sure I saw at least 2 squirrels in there, which they will live like that. There will be a couple that will live together. They have little family groups. And there's no way that squirrel that we saw was long enough to put its head there and its tail and the other little section below. There was a bit of an opening even a little lower, just a little bit. Yeah. So I saw it just on that end there as well. Wouldn't it be lovely if there were little squirrels? Kim, you say a nice little home here. Very, very nice little home. It's a great one. We call these homes that squirrels live in drays, which I think is just really cool. You want to come over to my dray? I think that sounds very cool. Here's King of Cool. Oh, that looks like an excellent stretch. Dizzy, you'd like to know if we get flying squirrels here? No, we don't. The only flying mammals that we get here are bats. But we don't get flying squirrels here. We just get the humble tree squirrel in this area. Look at that magnificent stretch. I hope that they are using this tree to nest in, because baby squirrels are just really, really, really cute. I'd love to be able to show you some. Again, these are one of those creatures that we often not underappreciate, but we get so used to their presence that we forget that they're also very entertaining and full of interesting information, and so much that we can learn from them. So lots of the time we just drive past. Very, very cute. Well, I'm going to send you now over to something that's similarly sized with Deirdre.
So the only thing flying this morning is sand out of the burrow here at the little Ngala group of meerkats. I don't know when you saw them last, but the little pups, you'll see them start popping in and out. We haven't had a count yet. Last count there were 5. We don't know how many are here. They're at a new burrow system this week, the what we call giraffe carcass burrow system, just because there's an old giraffe skeleton lying around. And the pups have actually got mobile within this last week, so they've actually been moving with the group, and the adults have been feeding them. They've been begging, squeaking for food, and the adults are just trying to satisfy that hunger. So they're only about a month now, maybe a little bit more. I know probably the viewers know the exact date they were born, plus probably also the exact date that they decided to go foraging. But we saw them yesterday afternoon briefly racing down in this direction. So it was a good lucky guess that they were here, quite close to the edge of the road. Just also enjoying the sun. They've at least had their morning coffee and they're out and ready, doing some burrow maintenance, because they've only moved into this burrow. They weren't in this burrow system yesterday, so they came in last night. So they're just making sure they're doing some housekeeping, cleaning, getting it ready. We also need to look around for some ground squirrels. I've seen Cape ground squirrel living in this burrow. I saw them here yesterday. There were 3. And there's also been a group of yellow mongoose that live here as well. So it'll be interesting to see what pops out any one of the other holes this morning. Oh, just look how he's enjoying that sun on his belly. So somebody's got to be the lookout and somebody's got to be the housekeeper. So I'm personally rather a lookout person than a housekeeper. Oh, there comes the little pups. How cute is that? And they just grow so quickly. So that little sentry, he'll be looking out for any signs of danger, whether it's from an aerial predator, being one of the larger eagles, or a ground predator. For them, mostly jackal and also snakes, surprisingly enough, do tend to, particularly the pups, make them very vulnerable. So they're always aware. It's a little bit too chilly for snakes to be moving right now, so they're more worried about jackal approaching or something from the air. She'll actually watch that one that's on duty. He looks left, he looks right, he looks up. He just keeps checking. And he'll be very, very quick to sound an alarm. Just to let them know if there's having to go back under and hide. So we're going to send you to one of the other reserves, and we're going to carry on moving on and see if we can find something else on this nice morning. At least the sun's coming up now. It's still a little bit chilly, but we'll send you to go and have a look at what one of the other properties has got.
Join us around the fire as we have our very first WildEarth Explorers fireside chat.
And what that means is that if you are an explorer, we're inviting you to come and join us so we can chat about the greatest highlights of 2020.
We will be chatting about our favorite characters and what they have been up to during the course of this year.
And if you would like to join us, head over to our Explorers page and subscribe. Don't miss out. This fireside chat will be on the 13th of December at 7:30 p.m. Central African Time, straight after Sunset Safari.
WildEarth is launching our brand new Explorer program with an opportunity to win a very special WildEarth expedition. The lucky winner will get a behind-the-scenes WildEarth experience at the magnificent and beyond Ngala Tainted Safari Camp. The prize includes a 3-night stay for you and a friend with a chance to sleep out in the unique Ngala treehouse. Become a WildEarth explorer and stand a chance to win this and many other prizes. Terms and conditions apply.
Why is the Mara special? It's one of the only few places that you can find the annual wildebeest migration. I will still go for the lion. The main reason is a sign of royalty, leadership in my tribe, and apart from that, over here, it is feared by all but loved by everyone.
Catch up with the guides daily here on WildEarth. Join our Explorers program so we can keep on sharing nature with the world. For a monthly subscription, you will have the opportunity to win fantastic WildEarth expeditions, have access to an animal identification app, receive weekly highlights from our shows, and much more. All the money will go to keeping these live safaris on air, which in turn connects a global population with nature.
I've just stuck around with these guys a little bit longer because they're being very cute. There were a couple yawns and now they're all grooming each other. So they can reaffirm all those wonderful social bonds. They keep quite close to family groups. And if you're constantly grooming each other, then you become so familiar with the smells of your group that it's very easy to identify an intruder. So it's an important practice in social animals. Good morning, clean. They stretched out so wonderfully. Like, you know how the other one was stretching out like a kite on a tree? The other ones did it too, and then they all yawned. Looks like a bit of a yoga pose. Was that not the cutest thing ever? That's the cutest thing I've seen a squirrel do ever. Melanie, you said that you never imagined Africa having squirrels. Well, we certainly do. Tree squirrels, ground squirrels. Squirrels, in fact, are generally all over the place. They were introduced in Australia. They're not native to Australia, but they were introduced there too. Remember that they're rodents. Oh, and now they've all gone. We have a lovely sparrow. Oh, squirrel's back. So the family that they're in, Squirrels, also includes things like chipmunks and all the different types of squirrels, tree squirrels, ground squirrels, flying squirrels, prairie dogs. And they, like you said, you didn't expect them to be found in Africa. Oh, so cute. But in fact, like I said, everywhere in the world, squirrels are found, except for Antarctica, and then obviously introduced in Australia, but they're not native. Quite a prolific and there are quite a few different species of squirrel in Africa. Oh, look at these three. Look at these three. That, for me, has to be the best squirrel sighting I've had. Glad to have shared it with you. All right, I'm going to send you over to Dan at Ngala. I wonder what he's got for you.
Cool, everybody. Welcome back to andBeyond and Ngala. Now, what we have got here is something quite interesting. And it's the first one that I've really found with fruits like this year. This is what we call a sour plum. And it's kind of gone through this incredible transformation in the past few weeks. I'm going to show BK this one first. So you see this green one? See how green it is? It's kind of going red on the outside. I'm going to try not to pick this one because this one is still kind of ripening. And then as we zoom out a little bit and have a look at some of these ones that are incredibly red are ripe, in fact. And I've been waiting for them over the past few weeks to kind of change from this green color to this red color. And this sour plum is, in fact, edible to us as well. And it's amazing to see this tree, how many. I'm going to pick only two. One for myself and one for BK over here. Not that one. That one doesn't look so nice. Get rid of that. Yeah, cool. I've got one for BK. I'm going to give him one as well. I wish you could see his face as he tries this. So these sour plums, I'm surprised this tree hasn't been absolutely destroyed by baboons and monkeys and things. And what we do, I don't know if this is going to make it any easier. So it is in the name. It is a sour plum and it is incredibly sour. So how you eat is you kind of take a little bite on the outside. Just remove the skin. Remove the skin a little bit. And then, you see it's incredibly fleshy on the inside. Once you've got like that top half, and then it's like a lychee or a lychee. And then you kind of just squeeze it out slowly. I don't want it to fall. Squeeze it out slowly. It is incredibly sour. And that first part is like super sweet. And then it gets really, really, really sour. You kind of get rid of the skin on the outside as well. And then there's a pip, a seed on the inside. I'm trying to do it as quickly as I can, but it is very sour. I wish you could see BK's face. And then let me kind of bite it here. You bite it in the middle, and you see that inside. Have a look on the inside there. You see how white it is and how fleshy? That seed is almost like, the best thing I can describe it as is being like a coconut, in fact. If you eat that thing, it tastes just like a coconut and incredibly high in vitamin C. Are these fruits, and it is amazing to see it. It's only this time of the year when they really fruit. I'm going to go ahead and eat the rest of this thing. Yo, that hopefully is my vitamin C for the whole day because it is very sour, but good for you. And I mean, we were talking about, Tswalu was talking about squirrels. Have a look over here. I don't know if BK can see it. Can you see there, Biggs? So, and there's all these other remains on the inside of the skin. Like dried up pieces of skin. The only animal that's really got into this tree would have been squirrels, and they'll kind of also do exactly what I did. Take the skin, you see how dry it is, it's kind of cracking. Take the skins off, trying to get into the middle, get rid of the flesh, and then get to the middle part, which I'm still chewing, in fact. But that middle pip is really, really good for you. And that fleshy skin on the outside, although it be super sour, initially super sweet, is really good for you. I'm sure this tree, or this bush, is going to be absolutely demolished by baboons. Particularly, they love it in the next few days. So I'm glad I got here and got to have my first taste of a sour plum this year. I mean, if you're a big fan of gin and tonics, kind of take one off, peel it, and pop it in your drink. I'm going to keep going though. Let's see what else we can find. I'm still on the search for lions. I haven't seen any tracks crossing in just yet. That's not to say that they haven't gone a little bit further north and then crossed back in. I haven't seen any signs of vultures. We're kind of heading into like a different kind of terrain as well. Into the Mopani thickets in the north, all sorts of different animals, particularly different birds in the Mopanis. And yeah, I mean, these are some roads that haven't been driven in an incredibly long time, which is quite exciting. I love this kind of exploring. And like being the first to do it in the long time, you go and see there's absolutely no tracks on the road. I don't think we've ever driven, or we haven't driven this road probably in 9 months, maybe even 10 months. So exciting exploring here. I mean, the grass is completely grown over. See what we can find in here. You'll see here we've got a first look at Mopanis. I'm going to try and find a leaf here for you. Let's get one of these brand new leaves, in fact. So I'm going to stop here at this tree and BK, have a look here. I'm going to peel this leaf over here. So this is an interesting, have a look at the shape of this leaf. Can you see it there? So what do you reckon it looks like? I mean, with these two kind of wings on the outside, it looks just like a butterfly, right? So this is a small Mopani. They actually get to be quite big and incredibly dominating. And so you'll see it's a unique type of tree, and the name Mopani refers to this shape. I mean, refers to the shape of a butterfly. And also, I mean, all these new leaves, they're incredibly high in protein, but I'm going to try and, seeing as we're tasting leaves and trees, I'm actually going to take a bite. Now, this is a tree that I'd love to see BK's face for. I wish I could show you. I know you'll never do it. Here you go, Beast. So you take a little bite of this as well. Now, this one's nowhere near as nice as that sour plum, but you can taste this bitterness on your mouth. And that is a protection that this tree kind of develops. You'll see, because it's so high in protein, elephants are only the animal that's only really able to digest this properly. And okay, so elephants are the only ones that are really able to eat these leaves, and you'll see the elephants that come from the northern parts of Kruger are quite a lot bigger. And one of the theories are because they feed quite a lot on these Mopani leaves and they're incredibly high in protein. But when you taste it, this bitterness and this like kind of rough texture on your tongue is a tannin that these leaves develop. And that's to try kind of deter animals from feeding on them because of the high protein values. And animals like kudu, who are normally browsers, they kind of move through here and they'll feed on these trees. But if they feed too much, they can even die from a tannin poisoning. And because of this high protein level, you'll see Mopani worms as well. In certain times of the year, they'll be coming up in the next few months. Mopani worms exclusively feed on these Mopani leaves. And because of the high protein content in the leaves, these are incredibly high in protein themselves. And you'll see people harvest them in their thousands, kind of squeeze out the insides, dry them out, and even export it all over the world. I'm quite glad I didn't find your Mopani worm this morning to try and dissect, because that wouldn't have been a good one to eat so fresh. But yeah, a unique habitat that we're heading to. I mean, there's also, these trees have got natural cavities in them, so all sorts of different birds kind of move in there, different snakes kind of try and find their homes. I'm going to try and see if I can't find you a really big mature Mopani as well. It is really beautiful. I mean, buffalo herds as well. If you're walking in these Mopanis, you better be very careful because it can be incredibly thick and incredibly dense. You've got to have your wits about you and be able to listen very carefully and walk slowly. In fact, the slower you walk, the greater your alertness and your awareness, rather. So I'm going to keep going, trying to see if we can't find tracks of these prides. It'll be interesting to see if they're hunting in this Mopani. And if I do, I'll keep you updated. In the meantime, I'm going to send you over to Tswalu.
So Dan's mouth must be really, really dry after chewing Mopani leaves. Here we've got somebody that actually is meant to chew leaves. Two nice giraffe males, youngish males. He does have a companion slightly further to his left. But, the popped his head up now. They're just busy feeding on the blackthorns at the moment. So you can see he's busy chewing. He hopefully doesn't have the same bitter taste in his mouth that Dan still has. Just a beautiful sight. We saw them, they were actually a little bit closer together earlier, and they started thinking about maybe necking, but the one sort of just shoved him sideways, and he thought, okay, well, think better of it. I'll just carry on browsing. So they have moved a little bit further apart now than they were earlier. But it's not uncommon, giraffe mix and match. One day it's all the girls together, one day it's the gents, some days it's one gent and all the ladies, so they just chop and change. Much lighter in colour here, comparative to other areas, but that's just a genetic thing. We've got his attention now because he's actually just stopped feeding and he's staring at us. Yes, good morning. Oh, no, lost interest very quickly. Carry on feeding. So that nice long little, well, it's not a little black tongue, it's actually quite a long black tongue, over 45 centimetres. And he just wraps it around the tree. That blackthorn's quite a nasty tree to deal with. It's got lots of little tiny hooked thorns. But the giraffe compensate with that by having very, very thick saliva and hard palate or roof of their mouth. And they just manage to deal with it. Sometimes if we're watching carefully, you can actually see them swallow, and you'll see that bolus of food go down the neck. Jerome asked the question, why is their tongue black? Well, I don't know, I'd probably say the same question is, why is my tongue pink? I don't have an answer to that, but I suppose generally when something's dark, I've got to think about that. Do any one of the viewers know? That'll be a good one for the feed, if anybody knows. Why is a giraffe's tongue black? But what I do know about the giraffe is that they've got these very, very interesting folds of skin inside their mouth that just help crush the leaves and break down the leaves, and it's very sort of like hard grinding plates almost, but they're like wavy. If you think about one of those home mops, those flat floor mops, or sometimes even carpets with those little bits that stick up, and you fold that and you put that on the inside of the giraffe's mouth, that's kind of what it looks like on the inside. But if anyone can help me as to why their tongues are black, I don't know. Good question. He's looking going, why would you ask why my tongue is black? We'll do a Google search. So another interesting question coming from Maddie is, do giraffe lose their teeth with age? Very often with young animals, you'll have what they call milk teeth, so in the very beginning of their life, and those will get replaced by their adult teeth. And with giraffe, no, they won't lose their teeth. They basically just grind down and down and down over the years. I'll see if there is, I don't know if there's a picture in the mammals book of anything that's got teeth, but basically if you think about your tooth, your molar area at the back, most of the animals will have a tooth like that, much larger, and then lots of little ridges and indentations, almost like a mountain landscape, and that wears down over time as they eat stuff. With the grazing animals, generally the silica content in the grass, what helps, it actually wears down their teeth pretty quickly. And with giraffe, it'll be just the brows and all of that. But you've got a giraffe lifespan 20, 23 years. So that's how long their teeth last. But their teeth will also, they'll just wear down. Elephants are actually quite interesting. I know they get 6 sets of teeth in their life. So they just get replacement teeth, but that's also because they're much longer lived. So they'll have mostly molars at the back of their mouth, which will be the crushing teeth. that they'll just crush the leafy material, and then very often just some incisors in the front which they'll actually use to nip off the branches. But with giraffe, they actually use their tongue more than anything else to pluck the leaves off the branches. Well, he's heading off. He sees something, just that change in body behavior. He's seen something out to the right. So Zay is asking the question, why don't giraffe make a lot of noise like other animals? So it's a common thing that people have believed that giraffe were mute, but I know for a fact that they're not. They actually do make a bit of a bellow if they get upset. I thought one day I'd be wise and sneak up to a mother that had a calf. And when I got close, she actually loomed over me. I was on foot. She loomed over me and she actually sort of like squeezed her belly and snorted. So they do make some kinds of sounds, but they're not vocal like a lion or a cheetah, or those animals will be vocal, but they do make like a sound if they get upset. And believe me, when that's coming from 3 meters above you, you do think, okay, well, she's just warned me, stay away from my baby. And that's exactly what I did. As soon as you back off, she was calm again, and there was no reason for her to carry on making noises. So they do make the odd bellowing sort of snort every now and again. So they've come a little bit closer together, and there was a little bit of a shoulder nudge. These are very young males, so effectively let's call them teenagers. They're busy testing each other out. They're not big enough or dominant enough yet to potentially be a breeding male, but they have to practice their fighting skills with somebody. So generally, another male giraffe in the group, they sort of try a little bit of a shoulder nudge, knock with their neck, knock with their head. I'm sure over the years the viewers have seen necking giraffe. These guys are just playing at this stage. They're still busy learning their fighting skills. They're not old enough or mature enough yet to get into a serious fight. And they'll figure that out over time. They'll have a little bit of a ranking. The giraffe in the area will know who's the heavyweight champion, who's the lightweight champion. Okay. The tongue is black because of sun protection. Well done, viewers. Thank you for that. Oh, he's going to try. So they're very amateur. If you've seen bulls fighting properly, they get themselves steady, they spread their legs apart, they ready themselves, and then they swing their head like a club or a big mallet to try and knock their opponent, generally trying to go for the shoulder area and up onto the head. Oh, maybe he's just stretching, he's practicing. I find it amazing that giraffe can bend his neck all the way around to lick the base of his tail or scratch. Very, very flexible with a long neck like that. You can hear a crimson-breasted shrike in the background, a nice bright red bird. Samantha, you've asked the question, can they kill each other in a fight? Absolutely. I have seen it happen. What sometimes happens with the giraffe is that they swing so hard that they actually knock one over. I've seen a guide got footage of as the one was on its way down, the giraffe gave one solid kick, hit it in the head, and that giraffe never stood up after that. So they can kill each other. That's when you've got two bulls that are so equally matched in strength that sometimes the only way to solve the argument is potentially a fight to death. So it has happened, it does happen, but with young guys like this, before it gets too serious, one of them is tagged out and said enough for the day, and they'll move on. It is something quite sad to see this massive, massive beast that's just been killed by another one, but that's one of the ways to sort out their ranking if need be. It's not common, you don't see it everywhere. So So they're heading off. I think we're going to start moving on to see if we can find... We're in the dunes at the moment. We're going to carry on heading out towards the west, see if we can find you some more dune mammals. Looking for maybe gemsbok or an eland, something different. Okay, so what else? See, do you want to have a look at those yellow flowers over there? We can talk about them a little bit. I don't know how you can, if you can zoom in. I'll see if I can find one relatively close. So I'm just asking Owen to frame up on some of those bright yellow flowers. So Chelsea is asking if Tswalu is humid or dry. So we have a very, very low percentage humidity here. We're out in a very, very arid region, so it is dry. The guys at Phinda will have much higher humidity than us, and it's just where we are in latitude across the country, as well as just our situation. So we're definitely in a more arid area, more dry, and no humidity. But make no mistake, we sweat like everybody else too here. It gets really, really hot. So Owen's showing you there some beautiful little yellow flowers. We call these devil's thorns, because once that flower is finished and it's been pollinated and it goes into a seed, it makes a very, very nasty sort of 3-4 pointed seed, which gets stuck in the animal's hooves, on the skin, and it gets transported and put somewhere else. So they've come up now recently in literally the last month. They've popped up they are sort of a ground cover like a creeper, and they're all popped up since then. They make these beautiful, beautiful yellow carpets. So as you watch over the next few weeks, we'll actually find some areas where it's just literally a carpet of yellow. If we pan a little bit to the right-hand side, you can actually see a lot more of them. There's a whole nice bright yellow carpet, and all of them have turned to face the sun as well. Oh, I can hear a jackal alarming in the background. He's probably the next dune over. So I'm going to go in search of that jackal calling, see what he's shouting at. Maybe we're lucky, maybe it's a cheetah. I'm going to send you over to Trishala, that's also on a search.
Such exciting stuff, especially when you hear alarm calls and you have this sense of focus and direction all of a sudden. It's really a beautiful thing. It is as beautiful as the moments when you just get to drive around in Bumble and appreciate just the sounds and the sights and how relaxing and calm it can be. It all has its most perfect place out here in the bush. It's amazing how well all these experiences come together to create a very well-rounded kind of lifestyle that we have here. Sometimes full of excitement, sometimes just enjoying and appreciating the sights and the sounds. So we've left our very, very cute squirrels doing their stretches and their yawns, and we are looking for some elephants. I heard them around via Telemain access, so that's where we're trying to go at the moment. But I want to go via Western Quarantine Road and just see if I can pick up on anything. It's a road that Shedulu has been frequenting, or always frequents, but Tingana was around there for most of the day yesterday and the day before.
Hey, we want airtime. Tswalu wants airtime. If we want airtime, we've got to show. Okay, wow, look on the left-hand side. Oh, I think if Owen's got him there, we've got sorry, let me just turn off the car. We've got a beautiful male gemsbok. He's literally, the two giraffe are probably about 50 meters to his left, so keep looking. They may decide to walk back into the frame, but he's got a little bit of a bush in front of him, but that's our best view at this stage. We'll just see if he decides to do anything different. I'm going to have a look through the binoculars and see what he's actually busy doing. Oh, beautiful. So we were talking about animals that had horns earlier, and we were talking about the springbuck, that both the male and the female have horns because they generally live out in open areas. So with the gemsbok, or oryx, I use either or, they also have the same. So when you look at an animal and you want to determine with a gemsbok which one is the female or which one's the male, you have a look at the way that the horns are shaped. So this one, you can see they're nice thick horns, but they're generally quite wide spread. This is a male. Also, another helpful fact is the fact that he's all by himself. Generally, you would find females in groups. And the females will try and find you one over the next time frame. They have much longer, thinner horns that are slightly closer together. So we're talking about the springbuck, and we were looking at the white belly of the springbuck that helps them reflect the heat. You can imagine also a gemsbok being that nice sort of, what would you call that color? He's like a light brown, a tan brown, that will also help him in the heat. But they really, really are phenomenal animals, being able to handle the hotter temperatures. Look at he's just busy grooming. So if he decides to stick his face out, you can see nice black and white, the same as the springbuck. So Critter Freak has just said, what a majestic creature. As far as animals go, antelope wise, the gemsbok and the sable, or the oryx and the sable, are two of my most favorite animals because they've just that face, those beautiful markings on the face. Very similar to the springbuck in that those markings also have an effect. Other than enhancing their facial features, they also help them with thermoregulation. So either holding heat or reflecting heat, as well as then reducing glare. You can also see he's got the exact same stripe from the eye going down the face that would help reduce the glare. But absolutely beautiful. Critter Freak, I agree with you. Also the same lighter underside on the belly, the same as the springbuck. Oh, I'm going to have to reverse the vehicle to keep him in the shot, so just bear with me a second. Oh, he seems to have moved. He's literally behind the one and only thick bush. So, Gary, that's a very interesting question you've asked there. Are they born with small horns? They're not really born with horns at all. They start emerging from about 2 to 3 months as little buds. Where did he go? Oh, there he is. So they start emerging as little buds, and then they'll start growing from there. It's quite strange. It's like a little cartilage of jelly, and then getting a layer of keratin, so very similar to fingernails, but in their case it's like a dark black color. And over time there'll be a central bone that will solidify inside that horn, and as they grow older and older, so their horns grow longer. But also, if you see the base of the horns, very often much thicker with lots of ridges. So I don't know how close Owen's gone in there, but if you look at those little ridges on the horns, with male gemsbok, if they get to the situation that they're fighting territorially, you can imagine those two sharp horns can be really, really dangerous if you've got two that are trying to poke at each other with those two horns. So those ridges on male animals' horns down at the bottom actually help when they're fighting. If those horns clash, it's actually almost like it slows the horn down as they clash and they fight, and sometimes also it might just catch on one of those ridges and therefore avoid avoid a fatal injury. Most of the time, they just want to push each other around a bit, see which one is more dominant, and then the loser just says, "I'm out, tag," and leaves, and then the dominant male will be the one that wins the females. So with Gemsbok, they actually do quite an elaborate sort of tap dance around each other for a little bit, sort of bow their heads, try and appear bigger, use sort of like posturing, and just to try and see if they can actually avoid the confrontation at the end. But if they feel that they're equally matched, then the fight can get pretty serious. Sometimes even that they're down on their knees, fighting with their horns in a sweeping motion. So Gemsbok will also use their horns to defend themselves against lion. Sometimes it's going down on their knees and then just using that horn in a sweeping motion. Incredibly accurate with knowing where the tips of their horns are in relation to their body. Oh, I can still hear that jackal. He's still calling. They normally make territorial calls in the morning, but he's yelping, yelping, yelping. He can see something's bothering him. So we're going to carry on and have a look and see if we can find what this jackal's shouting at.
Here we have a lovely group of impalas. It's a bit of a mixed herd. Lots of little ones bounding about. A really nice, peaceful scene. Also, there's a few males that are play fighting. You can see this. Everyone's kind of grouped together. Remember, I told you that we're seeing a bit of a split. Once these lambs are born, you'll get the very obvious breeding herds and bachelor herds. And today, they're together a little bit, and that might be a result of the fact that, look at that. Yesterday, they had a leopard on one side of them and lions on the other. So that couldn't have been comfortable, so everyone comes together again to be a solid herd. Safety in numbers. The sun is starting to beat down a little bit. And they're all kind of congregating in the shade. Just there. A really, really pretty sight. Now, because there were a couple of males that were having a go at each other in this herd, I want to stick around with them because the sound is unmistakable and such a beautiful scene.
Well, while Trish stays with Impala, as you can see, we have a leopard peering through the bush, and it's Kuchava's little boy that is basically hiding away in a little thicket. He is, well, doing what little male leopards do, particularly the way that he is, where he's a little bit shy. He likes to kind of be in a little bit of a denser area, but he's starting to go to sleep now, which is good. Initially, he was walking quite a bit, but we managed to kind of keep up with him through a very, very, very thick, very difficult area on Chitwa. And like I say, now he's just settled down, which is fabulous news for us. I mean, it's not the greatest view, but again, spending time with this little guy is very, very important because, well, he's still slowly getting used to the cars, and he's getting to the age now where it's important to do it while he's still kind of in his mom's natal territory, because once he starts to kind of feel the pressure of being pushed out, that kind of alertness gets amplified. So if we can start to relax him more now and spend more time with him, that's always going to be a good thing going forward. But he's not with Mom, or we certainly haven't seen any sign of Mom here. I think he's just on his own. Mom is probably out hunting. They're not that far from where we had them with Tundi the other day, quite, I suppose, a little bit to the east of where they were, but still inside Chitwa, which is where I think they spend so much of their time. We just don't realize that the area that we're in right now is like an impenetrable fortress, particularly in the summer months. And these two cats seemingly like to move around and operate within these thickets. It's a good reason for it. One is that there's plenty of prey items here in the form of duiker particularly. And two, it's a great place to kind of keep cubs because it's very difficult for a lot of animals to negotiate this thicket. It's got lots of little hiding spots in the form of termite mounds, tangled root systems. And if anybody remembers back in the days when Tundi had Tamba, these are the kind of areas that she used to hide him in with his sister. And then obviously his sister disappeared and it was just him. But they used to use these exact same blocks that we're in right now. And like I said, it's a perfect place. I mean, you can see how difficult would that be to spot if you were driving by. I mean, obviously that's a zoomed in image of that particular cat. If you come out a little bit, you see that it is near impossible to spot that leopard. So that would be our point of view. I mean, it's, you know, if it wasn't for the fact that he moves around when vehicles approach, you would definitely not know that there was a leopard there. It's almost impossible to see him until you kind of zoom in and you just see that little curled candy cane tail to the left there, as well as that little white spot on the ear. But that's the only thing that really gives him away. Otherwise, he's completely kind of hidden in this little thicket, which, like I say, is not great from a viewing point of view, but cool to see that we're finding him this week a little bit more regularly. And this is what happens, is if you can just get onto them once, and you just every day try and keep going at it, you start to see the patterns that they start to enjoy. You also find where mom is leaving them, and then it becomes a lot easier to kind of find them day in, day out, as opposed to when you lose contact with them and you don't know where they've gone. You're kind of on, you know, you're just scratching around, hoping that you're going to pick up a track for one of them at some point. And so it becomes a lot harder, and you've got to wait for them to kind of move through a place where you can see, and then you can start kind of tracking them. But if you just stay on them and check every day roughly in the area that they're in, often you'll find you get a lot of success. Now this morning we have had tracks for Tundi's cub 2 on Torchwood, but we just didn't have signal, and so that's why you know, we've come down to Chitwa and luckily got success with him instead. Is leopard the most successful, most widespread of the big cats? So yes, you find leopards throughout Africa, and then you find them in Asia as well, even into China. So they're pretty much the most widespread of the big cats. If you look at lions, their populations have been drastically reduced to a single population in Asia, and then, you know, obviously the populations throughout Africa, but even those populations have reduced quite significantly. Lions don't play well with humans. Leopards, while they don't do well with humans, are a lot sneakier, and they can survive outside of game reserves a lot better than lions can. They don't show themselves nearly as much as what lions do, and so therefore the conflict is not as bad. Cheetah, obviously, also massive decline. There's very few cheetah, and then jaguars are restricted to the kind of Amazon basin. So, well, not quite, but you know, they're in South America, so they're not quite as widespread as what you see from leopards. Leopards typically are quite a big distribution. Obviously, that includes all of the subspecies. So that's when we're including things like Amur leopard, the Asiatic leopards, the African leopards. They're all kind of the same genus, but there's these subspecies that come down from it. So if you include all of those, then yes, it is the most widespread of the big cats. In terms of Africa, if you just had to narrow it down and just the African leopard, it still is the most widespread of the 3 big cats we get in Africa. These guys are all over the place, and they survive in a multitude of different habitats, from mountainous areas to deserts to wooded savannas like we're in now, to grassland of the East African plains. Pretty much anywhere where there's an ability to find food, these guys are typically doing quite well. Sub-Saharan Africa, once you go into the Sahara, obviously, they don't thrive there at all. So pretty incredible species from that regard. Like I say, they can survive wherever they can just find food. And that's why you find the sizes of leopards is so ranging across these habitats. Small leopards in the mountains, much bigger. This area, they get much bigger. Lorraine, you're saying, are they born with the same spots and they have as adults? So yes, but what happens with little leopard cubs is when they're born, because of the size of them, those spots are all super condensed. So they almost look like solid rosettes. There's no little golden patch in the middle, really, because everything is so small. And so they actually get a very dark appearance to them, which helps because when they're at a very young age, and we're talking a few days old, you'll find that they're in these den sites, which are generally quite dark. So the darker their appearance, the more they're going to camouflage within these little holes. As they grow, though, those spots, because of the size of the body is growing, so the spots are spreading slightly, and that's when you get those rosettes to really form, and the little golden patch in the middle, and the spot pattern becomes a lot easier to see. But above the whiskers, those little spots don't change. Around the eyes, there's very little change in them. They just become easier and more clearly defined as the fur and everything else, as the animal grows, and then the fur itself becomes less fluffy when they're little cubs, and their fur is very fluffy in comparison to what they are now. Although this guy's got pretty fluffy ears, like his kind of, I don't know what to call it, is his nephew, cousin, maybe half brother, if they have the same dad. Tandy's little cub has got the fluffiest ears in the world. All right, I'm going to try and reposition just slightly so that we're out of the sun, because we're getting absolutely burnt by it. And while we do that, let's send you off to Trishala, who's with something that this little guy would love to eat.
Me too. That's why we've found a spot of shade. And the impala are now moving from their one spot of shade into another spot of shade. It's because we've sat here for a little while. The impalas have kind of moved around us, and you can hear them eat and walk quite nicely. Sounds that we often miss. So let's just listen for a little bit. This curious little lamb. Hello there. Yeah, you go back to safety. There's a grey-headed bush shrike calling in the background. Those are just some males having a go at each other. There you heard that burping sound and the snort. That sound you just heard there. That's the sound the ewes will make to kind of herd or call their lambs. Jen, you say impalas look similar to deer? Yes, they do. All antelopes have a very, very similar appearance. But I know exactly what you mean, Jen, and they also experience a rut just like deer do. Except impalas have horns, and deers have antlers. don't they? And impalas are actually in their very special own genus, Acciparus. Epicerus, there we go. I always say Acciparus, Epicerus. And they're the only animal within that genus. So you can say that they're quite unique. Absolutely unique when they are in the family Bovidae, and they are in Cervidae, I think. So they're quite different despite their similarity. Anyway, look, hear them, they're so wonderful. I'm going to send you over to Dan and see what he's got for you at Ngala.
Welcome back, everybody. Now we've got an elephant bull that's just been swimming in this watering hole, and he's just kind of left completely soaked. Look how he's throwing that sand onto him or underneath him. He might even throw some onto his back as well. Once he's covered in water, by throwing that fresh sand, it will even form like a crust on his body, which will help him keep cooler a little bit later. And it's just gone past 7 o'clock here, and it's probably already over 30 degrees Celsius. So we're preparing for an incredibly warm day, as I'm sure this elephant is doing. And getting a nice early swim is a good way to keep himself cool. And elephants being such big animals, Trish was talking about squirrels being so small and being able to overheat quite quickly. Elephants being so big takes a long time for them to warm up and a long time for them to cool down because of the size of their bodies. Look how he's using his feet there to loosen up the sand and then throwing it on himself, giving himself a bit of a dust bath, protecting himself against the sun later, and also trapping that layer or that cooler layer of air and water between his skin and then the outside, and it being exposed to the outside, which will keep him cool for a long time. I mean, just looking at him as well, it's very difficult to see if he's in must or not. And just from his behavior when he left, it looked like he might be in must. But now that he's covered himself in water and his body's actually dripping from water, it can be quite tricky. I mean, what we look for is between his back legs, from his penile sheath, you'll see to see if he's in must or not. But even by his behavior, he got out of the water initially and he was chasing birds and looking quite irritated and frustrated. And he's not the oldest bull around. I'd probably guess maybe around 25 to 30 years old or so, maybe 30. And coming into must, this will kind of encourage him to actively seek out. Look at all that sand that he's just thrown on his back. Quite amazing, actually. Encourage him to actively seek out herds of elephants and looking for breeding opportunities. And because of this increased level of testosterone when he comes into must, they can often be quite irritable and maybe a little bit more aggressive. So you've got to be extra wary of them. I mean, I've got probably 60 meters between us here and I'm on a bank, so I'm not too worried about that at all. But particularly being a younger elephant bull, maybe one of the first times that he's coming in and out of must for a longer period of time, you'll see he'll start to have to compete with the much bigger, stronger elephants who are also in must, looking for the same breeding opportunities that he is. And if he is competing against bigger and stronger elephants, they will actually suppress this must or these testosterone levels of his, and then he'll kind of go out of must. But you'll see as he gets bigger and stronger and older, and he starts competing and out-competing other elephants, he'll spend a much longer time in must. He'll actually get used to dealing with this increased testosterone level and almost calming down. You'll see bigger, older bulls deal with this level of must and this new new kind of frame of mind quite well. They've been doing it for many years, and they'll almost permanently be in must as well, looking for breeding rights. That's when they're in their prime and then they're biggest and they're strongest. I wonder if he's not going to start feeding now around the watering hole. I mean, he might have to actually put some distance to find the real green pastures that he's looking for, simply because this watering hole attracts all sorts of animals, and you'll see there are a few impala that he's going to go and walk by shortly. Let's see what his attitude towards them is like. If he is super irritable this morning, he'll actually even try and chase those impala away for no real good reason, just the fact that they're there, and he is the biggest and the strongest animal out here and gets the most respect. Let's see if I can't move a little bit forward and see. Tato, what's the function of an elephant's tail? And that'll just be to keep insects away. Mostly you'll see it kind of swishing, and that'll be the biggest thing, particularly if there's a wound or something close to its back legs or on its back side. You'll see the tail kind of swishing to keep flies away and prevent infection. He's kind of walking through there. He hasn't shown any interest in these impalas. Maybe he's not in must. He's actually calmed down quite a lot. I wonder what it was that irritated him so around the watering hole when we first got here. I'm sure if he is in must, that there's quite a lot of elephants around here that he will actually be, this form will be suppressed in not too long. Just because I think there are bigger, stronger elephants around who almost deserve the breeding rights more than this one, because they are quite a lot bigger and quite a lot stronger. Dixon, why does he have the dents kind of behind his ears? And if I'm understanding the question correctly, that is in fact where his ear, where he hears from. And that like kind of extra cavity will almost funnel the sound in there. And you'll see those huge ears. I mean, the ears are the actual hole to the ear. Or the ear, yeah, let's use that. It's just right in the front of the head, kind of where those dents will be. And you'll see they'll put their ears right out, almost acting like a radar dish, and funneling sound towards where that little small hole is. I mean, those huge ears are not necessarily only for listening. They're also there to keep them cool. And you'll see when an elephant's super irritated, they'll put their ears right out to try and make themselves look bigger and intimidate whatever it is that they're feeling threatened by. And you see those ears flapping there as well. I mean, he's not really trying to listen to anything, but he's trying to keep himself cool. Hippos calling around the watering hole. And by splashing and wetting those ears and now flapping them and allowing wind to pass over, he's going to allow himself to cool down and keep himself cool. Particularly if he takes advantage of this time of the day. I mean, it's not nearly as hot as it's going to be in the next 4 or 5 hours. So if he allows himself to cool down now, nice and early, he may allow himself some time, extra time to be feeding when it is quite hot and warm. I mean, he'll spend as much of the day as he possibly can feeding and moving around, unless it gets uncomfortably hot, in which case he may either go back to a watering hole, cool himself down again, or even rest in the shade of a big tree. Let's see if he keeps coming this way. Because, I mean, as uncomfortable as it is for us when it's very hot out here, these animals as well, they can feel super uncomfortable with it, and they'll try and rest in the heat of the day. And one of the bigger reasons for that is it takes a lot of energy to keep yourself cool. So that if they can conserve that energy and use it at a later time, I mean, elephants will also move all the way through the night, feeding. And maybe on a day like today, they'll take the advantage of the heat and rest in the shade and wait for this evening when it will be slightly cooler to move around and look for food. He's also, I mean, he's picked the shade of the tree there now while he's choosing to feed. Jen, do elephants use their ears to express their feelings? And the answer is yes. I mean, if an elephant is super frustrated, you'll see the ears come right out quite quickly, and that's the initial kind of movement. And one of the reasons is, I mean, an elephant is already a huge, big animal. But by putting their ears out, it's even more intimidating than what it was. And you can read an elephant's body language by the ears, in fact. And you'll see when, like this one here, his ears are slowly flapping. He's happy feeding. He's kind of giving us the signs that he's very comfortable and happy with what he's doing and not being irritated or frustrated by anything. But if his ears were out and permanently out, he's there trying to look bigger. He'll also be listening to whatever it is that he's trying to intimidate very carefully to try and get a more accurate guess as to what it is that's frustrating him. Like, you see the trunk up like that as well, smelling. You see how he has actually just chased those impala away? We were talking about, I wonder if he hasn't dried up a little bit. Let's see if I can get a closer look, see if he is in must or not. It doesn't look like it. I'm looking between his back legs and that penile sheath to see if it is dripping. And you'll often see the color of his back legs will be almost stained by a fluid. But it's super difficult when he's been swimming. Look how he's going to go scratch himself up on that tree. Let's see if he doesn't give himself a good scratch. Maybe even you'll see in the next few months that marula tree. He's going to maybe get some fruit on that tree, and he'll even sometimes go out to that tree and shake it and try and get as much of the fruit as he can. So I know there are lots of people asking about that elephant that we were watching the other day that was very, very pregnant. Haven't seen her yet. We have been kind of on the lookout, kind of passing by in areas. But there's a chance that she might have even left, gone back into the Kruger National Park and given birth there. Or maybe just spending some time in a thicker area, trying to conceal their little one. But look at this one scratching its backside on the tree. I mean, we take having hands and arms for granted sometimes, not being able to reach in those spots. But a tree is a really good thing to get a good scratch, and particularly when you've got an itchy backside. But yeah, I mean, I'll definitely be keeping you guys all updated about that pregnant elephant, see if we don't find a brand new little baby around. I'm sure it would have been born by now. I wonder where he's going now. Is he going back to the watering hole? He's kind of just walking straight through those trees as well. Joseph, why do elephants have wrinkled skin? I mean, particularly as a baby. Let's move back a little bit. You'll see those wrinkles allow lots of room to grow into. And keep going, because says. And then, once they get bigger and older and stronger like this, they don't have sweat glands. So you'll see when he goes and has a swim and wets himself and now throws sand, as you can see, underneath himself, on the back of him. That sand turns into like a crusty mud, particularly with the water on him. And that'll like kind of settle in those wrinkles. And because he doesn't have sweat glands to cool himself down, it'll trap that cooler layer underneath that soil or mud layer now into those wrinkles, allowing more cool air to be trapped. Look at that trunk up smelling. He's now smelling us as well. So even like this almost confused behavior are indicating to me that he might be coming in or maybe even out of must. Just because he kind of walked from the watering hole, he went for a swim, went over to one sandy patch, threw some sand on himself, went to the tree, scratched him, then he went back. And now he's kind of walking around. If he does keep coming towards us, I'll make some space. I'll try and be as respectful to him as I possibly can. Also for the reason that, I mean, he's under excess stress at the moment with his testosterone levels being slightly elevated. I don't want to be an extra stress in his life, and particularly being the biggest and strongest animals we're talking about, impalas, making space for them if they need. I'm exactly the same. If this elephant wants to go somewhere and I'm in the way, and it really wants to, particularly if he's in must, he may just come right towards us without worrying too much and using his big strength to kind of intimidate us, although I'm not going to give him the opportunity or put him under any kind of stress to even make that decision. Now he's kind of just resting. Don't know if he's trying to pick up some sand to continue throwing on himself, or if he's found a good patch of plants and grass. even that kind of behavior. I mean, he knew we were here, kind of came towards us, smelling us. Now he's stopped and changed his mind again. Going into that tree, using a little bit of shade. I mean, you'll see the plants and the growth underneath that tree, because it's in the shade, will be slightly more nutritious because they're not getting caked and absolutely destroyed by the sun. So he'll pick that fresh grass. You see how he has there, right underneath the tree. Is he going to feed on that tree? It doesn't look like it. Selectively choosing the freshest and most nutritious grasses. Look how he uses his leg to help him, or his foot to help him. You'll often see him using his foot to kind of break things off, maybe some roots. Okay, I'm gonna probably keep going, let this elephant go on his way. I'm also gonna, if he is coming in and out of muster, I'm gonna let him do what he needs to do, continue feeding, and in the meantime I'm gonna send you somewhere else.
Have you been watching WildEarth and dreamt of being right there on safari with one of the guides? Well, now you can. WildEarth is offering you a chance to buy a ticket to dream. You or a friend can hop on board a live WildEarth show and join our guide on safari. The ticket is redeemable at any of our locations, anytime in the future. Only a limited number of tickets are available, so don't wait. Get your ticket now and start dreaming. Terms and conditions apply.
Join us around the fire as we have our very first WildEarth Explorers fireside chat.
And what that means is that if you are an explorer, we're inviting you to come and join us so we can chat about the greatest highlights of 2020.
We will be chatting about our favorite characters and what they have been up to during the course of this year.
And if you would like to join us, head over to our Explorers page and subscribe. Don't miss out. This fireside chat will be on the 13th of December at 7:30 p.m. Central African Time, straight after Sunset Safari.
Welcome to my car. This is Wendy, and she's my favorite. She would love to have your name engraved on her so you can be with her every single time she goes on a safari here in Djuma. If you become a WildEarth Explorer, you will have the opportunity to buy an engraved tag which we will attach to her. We will make sure to send you a digital picture to show you exactly where you are sitting on her. You will have front row seat in every single sighting.
We've seen these ellies really chase wild dogs before. Let's get into the spot. There we go, there it comes. Look at that, isn't that amazing?
Expect the unexpected here on WildEarth daily.
So we were following up on that jackal making lots of noise, and we found an area that had a cat had scent marked somewhere, but I couldn't find any tracks. So we've moved out of that area and we bumped into this little group of meerkats. They're unknown to me. They are not our normal groups that we're viewing on most mornings, so they are a little bit nervous. So as soon as Owen or myself move a little bit on the vehicle, they duck down. We've counted at least 8 in this group, mostly adults and sub-adults. But the interesting thing now this morning is you can actually see the plants around the den, the burrow system, are actually moving quite vigorously. The wind is still blowing quite strongly. We've got probably about, I think it was, the forecast was about 20 km/h winds, but the meerkats normally by this time in the morning, in summer, they've warmed up enough that they actually go foraging. So just the sheer wind for a meerkat, when you've got these aerial predators and these ground predators that we were talking about, and you've got all this other noise around you and all this distracting movement, sometimes they just wait it out for a little bit to wait for the conditions to get better. So that's what this little group has decided to do, is just wait it out at the burrow, see what's happening around them, they've got to be more super alert for the predators. They're close enough that they would have heard that jackal calling this morning, so they know that there's one in the area, and they're going to be on high alert. But when all the plants are moving, it actually almost takes away their hearing. So they're not, if you've got, I don't know if you're picking it up on the mic, the breezing of the wind, but you can clearly see it by the movement of the plants. The wind is quite strong. That tends to take away their hearing, the ability to hear very, very effectively. And also there's so much movement around, they don't know what's a predator, what's just a moving bush, and they are generally a lot more cautious. So they keep popping up and popping down. That's also just scanning around, but you can still see, still facing in an easterly direction to get that nice sun on their body. That's also why they've got very limited hair across the front, their chest area, and generally much darker in color, so they can absorb the heat, and that helps them. In winter, they tend to get a little bit more hair, so they're a little bit warmer, but in summer, that tends to be very, very sparse with hairs, and it allows them to warm up quite nicely. So hopefully they'll go out feeding soon. We don't want to lose too much of the day. We're going to send you across to Tristan with an update on that leopard.
It's always amazing when you get an area where people spend a lot of time and check things out, and they see something new or a group that they don't know. I mean, it happens for us sometimes with different animals as well. It's part of the excitement of being in an open system like the Krugers, that you don't know what can be around the corner, and you get random movements of animals, and new lions arrive, new leopards, you get the odd elephant herd that you don't recognize coming through. Big buffalo herds. So it's always nice when that happens. As you can see, our little boy is having a nap, and I don't blame him. He's got himself nicely tucked up into the shade, and Thea and I have got very little, and I can assure you that the sun is beating down today. It is very, very warm in the sun, and so I'm not surprised that he's found himself a little spot to nap in that is nice and shady. We're trying our best to kind of find little spots where we can view him from, but where he's in is this tight little thicket. Now, normally we would be able to maneuver our way into a little gap, but with him, because he's not the most relaxed cat, I don't want to push it and get too close and disturb him out of his little shade. And so for now, this is what we've been relegated to, is a little spotty leg and a piece of a tail, basically, that is kind of hidden amongst the vegetation. But I will take this as a win. The fact that he's not even looking at us and is sleeping and is just happy to be in our presence, that's a good thing. And the more we sit here and the kind of more we talk, and he gets used to the fact that the voices in the car and everything else is nothing to be too afraid about. Then, like I said, we're doing a good job. Then we're making sure that for the future, it's going to be better for everybody involved. Although, being a young male leopard, chances are he's not going to stay in our area, so we'll probably, lose him to somewhere else, like we have with all of our boys of late, which is a sore point. It feels like we keep giving away all our relaxed males and getting unrelaxed ones in return. But it's okay, it's part and parcel of how things go. Interestingly enough, I did have tracks for a male leopard quite far into Torchwood. When I say far, I mean eastwards, in an area we very seldom go because it's just too far east. And I wonder, that area should theoretically be for quarantine. The track wasn't fresh, it wasn't from last night, it looks like from the night before. But I wonder if maybe it's him. He hasn't been seen in over 3 months now. So, it's obviously a bit of a concern when we don't hear updates on him. But given where his territory is and how close it is to that Kruger boundary, sightings of quarantine were never that frequent in the first place. They started to get less and less frequent the more he kind of pushed east. And he'd be bumped into every now and then, but no one's actually seen him for the last kind of 3 months. And there could be that he's no longer here and he's moved more into Kruger. There could be the fact that he might no longer be with us. It could be that because of it's been locked down, the number of vehicles is slightly lower, although that doesn't really apply to the Djuma Buffelshoek Tortured Traverse, because a lot of that is not based on overseas tourism. That's more kind of landowners that are there, and so you'd find that the density of vehicles is still pretty similar to what it was prior to, well, I mean, probably just after the hard lockdown that we had here in South Africa. And so, that shouldn't really be a factor that much. But yeah, unfortunately, he hasn't been seen for a while. The last time he was seen was leaving a sighting of Nhlangula and Sele when they were mating, and he was seen walking off. He was absolutely fine. There was nothing wrong with him. It wasn't like he and Nhlangula had a big fight and killed each other. He was seen, I think, a day or two after that, heading back to his normal area. But that was the last sighting we've had. So I wonder if those tracks are for him. Either that or there's a different male around that's walking there. I don't think Mulawati goes that far. I could be wrong. A lot of what we know about Mulawati is so kind of hearsay, because reports and sightings of him generally are not exact. There's a lot of people that misidentify that leopard. A lot of people see a skittish leopard and they just immediately assume it's him. We know that he's been identified as Hosanna, he's been identified as Tingana, and vice versa. And so it's kind of a difficult thing to gauge exactly where he's walking, and that, coupled with his shy nature, means that sightings of him are few and far between, and generally at night. So we don't have a clear picture of how far Mulawati is moving, where exactly his territories lie. Generally, we do have very good kind of ideas of where leopards go, but with him, it's very, very tricky. All right, I might try just one more reposition, because it looks like there might be a gap where we can at least see his kind of body a little bit better. In the meantime, let's send you to Dan, who's got some endangered birds in a tree.
Welcome back, everybody. Quite amazingly, actually, we stopped here and we saw these southern ground hornbills flying alongside us in the riverbed, and they decided to land in a tree right in front of us. It's quite amazing. I'm surprised they're not on the ground already moving around looking for food. It's quite amazing to see this family. There's about, there you go, one just hopping there, another one scratching itself. Seem to be awake quite late this morning, waking up. This is often how they start their day, up in the tree, often calling. I'd love to hear them calling. This kind of low, deep, bellowing kind of noise. It's beautiful. And you'll often hear them calling from a perch like this, allowing that call to go travel quite far so that other flocks can hear them. I wonder if they're not, maybe they've already done their hunting and feeding this morning, looking for all sorts of small mammals, reptiles on the ground. They do spend most of their time hunting on the ground. Now it looks like they're kind of just preening themselves and enjoying a bit of the shade. Huge birds. I mean, when they were flying as well, they kind of flew right over us. Huge wings, this white that contrasts so nicely with that black and that red face. But it's interesting. I mean, there is a chick at the top left, which is a little bit hidden. Toby, never seen them in a tree before. You're right, because they do spend most of their time down on the grounds moving around. However, as you can see, they are often in the trees. They'll sleep up in the trees as well in the evening, so that'll be the safest place for them. They also nest in trees, and they try and get into the natural cavities of trees, maybe into a rock crevice, to lay their eggs. And they're a pretty endangered bird as well. I mean, their numbers are bouncing back quite nicely in the past few years, but they've got an incredibly unique way of breeding, and their breeding spots, they're very fussy with the nest that they pick. So you'll see in a tree, maybe not quite similar to this one, probably a bigger one with a natural cavity or a hole in it somewhere. They'll kind of lay an egg, and they all work together to raise these chicks, and they'll lay 2 eggs, of which, in this little natural cavity, of which when the first one hatches, the next one will die. So they'll only give birth, or they'll only really have one chick that survives, and the whole flock looks after it. and it takes them quite a long time to leave the nest, and they'll only do so every few years. Once that chick has really gotten to adulthood, will they start to breed again. So because of habitat destruction, and them particularly being quite fussy, and their slow reproductive rate, their numbers took a huge hit, but they seem to be, through careful efforts, bouncing back slowly, and we're seeing lots of them around. People even have been making these kind of artificial nests for them to hang around in and breed in. There's that chick at the top. You can see its face is nowhere near as red as the ones at the bottom. And it's quite amazing to see them up in the tree at this time of the day. You can see that one that's kind of moving its wings. Look at the white. I mean, contrast, it's quite difficult to balance up in there. Maybe that young one isn't used to crawling or running around in the tops of the trees. Donnie, what are their predators? I mean, they won't have too many predators. I mean, maybe if a venomous snake bites them, and they do feed on venomous snakes, such as puff adders, and that's a favorite prey of theirs. In fact, it's probably one of the things I've seen ground hornbills eating the most is a puff adder. Or if it's careless enough to wander too close to lions, particularly a young lion, or even a leopard. There goes one. Let's watch carefully as they might all follow that one out the tree. If they wander too closely to lions or leopards, that might put them at risk. I'm sure, watch this one at the bottom kind of fly out. I'm sure it's going to go shortly and follow everyone. I'm sure these other ones are flying just off to the right to go and continue looking for food. And in this time of the year as well, there have been lots of tortoises, leopard tortoises we've seen. With those big, strong bills, you'll see the young one nowhere near as graceful. Let's move up ahead slowly, trying not to spook them if they are on the ground. I wonder if one of them maybe didn't see a feeding opportunity. Maybe one of those snakes that I was mentioning on the ground. And the grass is quite long here as well. They are on the ground. There they go, flying off. So I didn't make it around here quite slow enough, I don't think. I didn't mean to chase them at all. And they've kind of gone into the distance there. Let's stop and have a quick look, see if we can't see them. There's PK. There they go. Just walking away. I mean, these open areas are really good. I mean, we were just mentioning tortoises in this time of the year when it is raining, they're coming out. And the tortoises will be moving through these areas as well, looking to feed on any of the new shoots that are growing. I mean, it's quite an aggressive process with a ground hornbill feeding on a tortoise. They'll aggressively put their... Oh, what was that? Hold on one second. Did it run up into the tree? Oh, a big monitor lizard. Sorry, I don't know if you can see it, PK. Can you see it in this tree here? Yes, it gave me quite a fright, actually. It might be a little bit too big for those ground hornbills, but I wonder if it wasn't worried. It was lying right underneath the tree. Oh, it's really tricky. Let's see if I can move forward a little bit. Right under the tree where those ground hornbills were. And they're ferocious predators, these ground hornbills. And might have even tried to attack and eat this monitor lizard. It's super tricky. I actually can't even see it anymore at all. Let's just have a closer look into this tree. So let's pick up some binoculars. Yo, BK is there. But very, very difficult to see. So quite a big reptile and quite a big monitor lizard, that. Rock monitor. A smaller one certainly will be on the prey menu for those ground hornbills. But have a look how camouflaged it is in that tree as well. I think this monitor lizard, between myself and those ground hornbills, got a little bit nervous this morning. I obviously didn't intend for that at all, but it gave me a big fright. Maybe that's some consolation. No, can't see it. It is there, very well camouflaged, and using its camouflage to actually hide from us. Cool, so I'm going to keep going along the road, seeing what else we can find. What an awesome sighting of ground hornbills up in the tree. In the meantime, I'm going to send you over to Tristan and his leopard.
Well, we're trying to see if we can find some shade, which has just woken our boy up. He was fast asleep, but alas, we can't get anywhere into any shade. We've tried to see if there was a different angle, but there isn't. This is the only one there is. He's yawning a little bit, so maybe he's going to kind of move, but I don't think so. He's got himself such a nice little spot there. It's kind of surrounded by trees, so no matter where the sun moves, he's going to find himself some nice shade if he stays there. There's like 4 trees that kind of surround him, all of them quite bushy, which is the perfect spot, because like I say, if the sun moves all day, then he can find shade wherever he goes. Either way though, I think we're all in for a warm day, which is going to make life tricky for our cats. They're going to be panting their way through most of the 12th of December, trying to stay nice and cool. So Linda, I mean, you never really know what would happen. What happened, should I say. I mean, if we look at meetings of young male leopards in the past, so Tambo Hosana, slight little bit of aggression, but not a lot. They're not territorial yet, so most of the time they're pretty nervous of other leopards. But if they're a similar size, then there might be a bit of a curiosity that they approach each other, see who is who. I mean, we've obviously seen with Tamba and Hosana that Hosana followed around Tandi for a while, so Tamba got quite used to Hosana in many respects. And even though there was a little bit of aggression when the two first met one day, that we saw properly, there was a bit of snarling and hissing. Neither of them were very aggressive. I mean, they were more curious of each other, realized it was not a leopard that they know well, snarled a little bit, and then both got up and walked opposite directions. And there was no chasing of each other. It was a far different scenario to what we saw from Kuchava and Tandi. So I don't know. I mean, I think we'd have to just wait and see what would happen. I sense that Tandi's little one, if he saw the size of this one, would be intimidated and run away. That would be my guess right now. But who knows? You know, it's leopards and their interactions, particularly at this age, is a complete mystery, really. Each leopard is different. Each one has its own personality. Some are more curious, some are more shy. So it would really just depend on that individual. But I suspect that you would find that they'd both be quite nervous of each other. Another leopard is generally dangerous if it's not mom, and that's kind of hardwired into them. So I don't expect there to be a huge amount of love between them and kind of coming together, but I also don't think that they would be fighting. I think they'd both be pretty wary of each other, see each other and try and slink off, or they'd do the complete opposite. And if it was like Hosana, would be very curious and would come and investigate and see who this is and talk to them. And Tlalamba was a bit like that too when she was little. Where are you off to now, boy? There's a bit of sun on his head. I think maybe that's what was making him feel a little bit hot. You can see he's moving into another tree. That's the tree that I thought he might lie under, because that one is supremely shady. It's got a nice dense crown. Yep, that's exactly where he's gone. The good thing for us is that actually might be a better view for us. There's like a nice little open gap on the other side there. So we're going to just try. I'm not going to go close, but let's try and see. Cobalt, I mean, probably Mulawati, but all of them really. It astounds me how often the leopards here are misidentified. To give you an idea, the other day when it was Kuchava and Tandi, I was told that it was Sabui and her cub. Now, firstly, Sabui has 2 cubs. Secondly, Sabui's cubs are in no way, shape and form skittish. And so when you see a leopard moving away from you, especially a little young male, you know it's not Shasha. He is very, very chilled. So, you know, they all get misidentified regularly. The other day I got told Tingana was Mulawati. Hosana often gets misidentified. The only one that doesn't get misidentified regularly is is Hukumuri, and that's just because he's got, and Nsele, the two of them typically are pretty good. Most people know who they are, so it's never too much of an issue. Funny enough, I find that, the Djuma side of things, we get the IDs pretty spot on. I mean, obviously, for WildEarth side of things, we have all of you that help us if we do get it wrong. But, I mean, we know our cats pretty well, and we spend a lot of time with them, so we identify them pretty easily. But yeah, I don't know. People jump to a conclusion before they check. And I always think if you're unsure, rather kind of research it first before you state who it is, or say, I don't know, it's a female leopard or a male leopard. But people love to throw a name around. And like I said, I think Mulawati is probably the most misidentified, though. That poor cat is everywhere and nowhere. And he's been deemed to be a young leopard, an old leopard. He's been mixed up with pretty much everybody, which is a shame because he's pretty easy to identify. It's not like he doesn't have a unique look about him. I find that he's a cat that you immediately can see that it's him. The only one that you could probably confuse the two with would be, now I forget his name. Why is this gone from me now? That will come to me shortly. I saw him briefly the one night, and he was up on Buffalo's Hook for a while. I don't know. I'm getting old, so I forget these things. But those two look very, very, very similar. They can be confused, and I wonder if maybe they're not related. Because the other one, we don't really know where he started off from and what his kind of history is. But they do look close if you see the two of them. I remember actually, I think I had pictures of the two of them at one point, and we showed them side by side, and they did have quite a few little similarities. But not to say that means anything, because as we've seen, leopards like Tiani have a look about them that screams Anderson, but the father's actually Tingana, so you can't always go by looks, that's for sure. All right, our little boy has decided to hide in his little thicket. I'm going to just try one more little gap, but it's going to take me a long time to get around and see if we can get a view. Otherwise, we might just leave him to himself. In the meantime, let's send you across to Trish.
It's the time of day when that will happen because it's really, really warm now. And this Ngala bull thinks so too, coming down for a bit of a drink here. How gorgeous is that? They like to, or tend to be in the thickets, so we don't get to see them very often, or we don't get to put them on camera too often. And we hardly ever get to see them have a nice drink. Such a beautiful, beautiful antelope. You can see the oxpeckers on it too. Lots of little birds along the edges of the dam too. We've got the lapwing. Where'd you go, lapwing? And also down on this side, we come all the way down to this end. We'll just have our aerial in the way. You'll see there's a wax ball. That's it. It's the wax ball. Let me show you with my binoculars. Oh, it's a cinnamon-breasted bunting. Oh, it's just flown away. You can also hear squirrels screaming in the background. Maybe worth checking out. Remember how that one was shouting at Tingana yesterday? But they shouted a whole lot of stuff. So we were following some elephant tracks down this way and was hoping that we'd see them here, but it appears that they've already been here because there's lots of dung floating in the water. And we're going to continue to look for them and then maybe head into the Mulawati, where it's nice and cool, and if I were a wild animal in the bush, that's where I'd want to be, if not at the various dams. Gavin, you're asking if it's true that Ngala dance when they fight. Yes, it is. It's called a lateral presentation. How cool is that name for a dance? And yes, you can call it a dance. But what they do is they size each other up and walk very, 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 very slowly. It's the slowest fight you'll ever see in your life. And what they do is they make every movement very purposeful, and they make the hair, see the ridge on the back of their neck that runs down their body. They lift up that ridge of hair and they make themselves appear much larger. And then they present to each other and they size each other up in a bit of a dance. And by doing that, they figure out which one is bigger and stronger. And if they are equally matched, that's when you'll see a clash of horns. And that doesn't happen very often. I haven't seen them actually clash before. Seen them laterally present many times and seen there be a winner. But I have not seen them so well matched that they have to then actually clash horns. Here are his female companions with a little one. Hello, little. Everyone's seeking out shade or water. Much like me, I've been seeking out water, and now I'm going to go seek out shade in the Mawati. Off they go. That is a great example there, that female Ngala there as she walked. You see the way that the light streamed down from the trees, and what a great effect that had in looking just like her coat. So when she's in that shady spot and light comes through, it's great camouflage. Now she's out in the open. I need to see her again under a tree. Look how careful they are as they come down. They're as they should be. Obviously there are no crocodiles in this dam, but instinctively it is somewhere that they have to be very, very careful. Apart from the fact that, apart from the fact that there could be predators in the water, it's also a super vulnerable position to be in, head down and focusing on drinking. And it doesn't just have to be predators in the water that can grab you, but predators even that may sit in the shade nearby. So you have to be very, 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 very careful. Oh, this is so lovely. Oh, waiting at the dam really pays off. You can see some really, really rare things that you don't think of as rare. But how many times have we seen 6 or 7 Nyalas, 8 with that bowl, come down to drink? Everyone says it's very beautiful to see the whole family. It is very, very, very beautiful. Oh, but I'm afraid by a few birds. Let's see how cautious they are. Even a little movement by a bird can. Oh, how a hippo has got a stick. Oh no, are you the Vuyatella Dam hippo? It's the Scuba Steve. Because I know that hippo loves to play with a stick, and now we just have a stick popping up. Some awesome sightings here at Treehouse Dam.
Welcome back to andBeyond and Ngala, everybody. Now, I've kind of just framed up on this marula tree here. There was a black-headed oriole that was in there calling and calling. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to spend a bit of time listening to see if we can't hear it calling. And also just take in the rest of the sounds that are around us. And I'm sure that oriole is still in that tree, keeping well hidden and out of sight, unfortunately. And even a little bit more disappointingly, not calling. They're quite vocal birds normally. Unfortunately, we didn't get to hear it there. But I'm going to keep going. I might go and check a watering hole, seeing if anything isn't coming down to have a drink, because it is incredibly warm here today.
Our hippo is having quite some fun with a stick, so we're going to watch him for a little bit. I wonder if it is the same hippo we've been seeing playing with the stick at Viatella Dam before. Or maybe playing with the stick is fun when all you're doing is sitting in the middle of the water. I know some of you might be wondering if maybe it's stuck. He has lodged it, but he can definitely get it out just by a little bit of rubbing. Now he's just playing. All he has to do is rub that end of the stick against the ground and he'll be able to get it out, because it's very loosely lodged. Oh, he's using it as a snorkel. It looks like a snorkel, except there's no air. This reminds me of, you know, when you're little and you play wrestle, like my brother used to do with me. And all of my toys. It reminds me of that. It's beating up the stick. It's like another bull came into his territory, and that stick is the other bull. I'm in a display. So 50, you say it reminds you of a domestic dog with a stick? Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of behaviors that we see and that we don't see. They're just a result of play and keeping one occupied and curiosity. And that's something that we see in our pets all the time, because we spend so much time with them and they become part of our lives, so intimately. But I'm sure this happens all over the animal kingdom, where things just find something curious and then, yeah, I'm going to play with it. Now where's your stick gone? he picks up that stick and comes and drops it off here for me to throw it at him, or for him, I'll be going home, guys, because that would be just amazing. Of course, that'll never happen, and it'll probably be the last thing I do if I tried to take it. You'd get to see it on camera, though. That'd be entertaining. Hello. Where will you pop up? Pop up, pop up. Robert, you'd like to know if I could tell the age of a hippo by looking at him? It's difficult. Firstly, because we don't ever really get to see the whole body for long enough to be able to use that as an age estimate. But a big bull, you're looking at about 2 to 3 tons. And a female is about half of that. Some people say that a female has lighter, pinker parts to her. And that's a good way to tell sexes apart, but I've not found that to be a rule. As for age, sorry, I just heard an alarm call. I'm just gonna talk a little bit softer so I can hear. As for age, a hippo is... Okay, there's something here. We're gonna move. Okay, we got her. Hello, girlie. Hello, girlie. I see a leopard. Are you gonna come drink? She's directly behind the car now, so let's just wait a moment. Hey, girl. Can't see who it is. I think it's... Actually, I can't see. Hey. Okay. She's darling. La 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 lamba. Yay. Well, that was an awesome find. Were you gonna come down to drink and then I disrupted you? Or did all these impala disrupt you? Wow, that was a very, very lucky find. It's a gorgeous lalamba, everyone. Can you hear the impala? Samuel, you'd like me to answer whether I think leopards are the cleverest of the big cats. And, you know what? At one point, I think I would have been able to answer that in a flatter way. We're just going to follow her while we chat. So, no, I don't think that. In the past, I would have said, you know what, there's an experiment has been done, and in fact, it shows that lions are the cleverest of the big cats. And there is an experiment that shows that lions are the cleverest of the big cats, because in tests of usually what it is if you try and find a trapdoor, and if one animal pulls this side, another animal pulls another side, it's tests like that, then they'll get a treat, and if they can learn that sort of behavior. But I've recently been reading a book on the evolution of intelligence, and it said something very interesting, and it said that intelligence is a very difficult thing to categorize, because each thing is intelligent for what they need to be intelligent for. Leopards are not social, so why should they need social intelligence? So it's a very difficult thing to answer. I'm sorry if you wanted the short answer, but you got the long answer. Let me call this in quickly. Stations, we've located Tlalamba. She's on the link road between Treehouse Dam and the Hyena Den. I'm with her at the moment. First responder, please take over the lineup. There we go. Well, this was very, very lucky. I'm very glad that we got a princess. And we're going to keep... Oh, look at this girl. Look at this girl. We're going to keep up with her, and then we're going to send you over to Dan with some elephants in the meantime.
Geez, that is a stroke of luck this morning, Trishada. How amazing. I mean, we... Fingers crossed for something similar, but while we also had a watering hole, a huge herd of elephants has come, and let's not exaggerate huge too much, but probably around 20 elephants have come down to drink and swim and play in the water. It's quite amazing. And also what's super, super interesting about this, I mean, this matriarch, or I'd assume the matriarch, who's quite close to us over here. If you look at her, she's actually got, try and zoom in on that shot, because can you see that collar on the top of her? So very interesting. This is something we don't see very often at all. I can only remember a few times seeing elephants with collars on them, and that'll be exclusively for research purposes. We've got no access towards the information that gets brought to Carrier. She's come a little bit closer, and the bar is right in the way. So I'm going to stick on the little ones that are swimming, but keep talking about that collar. So researchers will put the collar, choose either a matriarch in a herd or even a younger elephant. Just going to listen to the splashes quickly. Looks like a lot of fun in there. She's rolling around, splashing, playing. Look at all of them. All of them are almost completely submerged. But going back to that collar, so they'll pick an individual and they'll follow particularly movements in different times of the year, try and track in winter time where they're going, where they're feeding, and follow this herd incredibly closely. I don't have any access towards that specific collar. I don't know this herd particularly, and the fact that I haven't seen an elephant cow with a collar on it for a long time means that this herd's very likely just come onto Ngala maybe in the past couple of days. It'd be fascinating to find out exactly the movements of this herd and where they've been and how long she's had that collar on. I mean, it's got no real impact on it. It's super loose, allows for growth as well. But quite amazing. You see how the little ones, I mean, the one with the collar's got out of the water and she's actually left now. But I'm sure that'll kind of be, if she is the matriarch, I mean, she is the biggest and looks like the oldest female in this herd, so there's a good chance of her being the matriarch. Essentially, the female who's in charge, and because she's kind of left, I'm sure these younger ones are going to stop playing and maybe leave shortly. I see a couple of the younger males are being a little bit pushy and shovey. Looks like, I'm actually quite jealous. I mean, it's swelteringly hot out here. Looks like quite a lot of fun. Jerome, have I ever found a drowned elephant? The answer to your question is no. Particularly here at Ngala, we don't have any really fast, deep-flowing rivers. So that would probably be the trickiest place where an elephant might drown. And you do see some footage. Look at these two. You do see some footage of elephants, particularly younger ones, when they're trying to cross and they actually really need to swim, of getting kind of washed away. So there is a chance of elephants drowning. But here, where there's no fast current or fast flow of water, I think the chance is very low. And even if one did try and start to drown, I'm sure one of the females or one of the other ones will be there very quickly to try and help it. Whereas in fast-flowing water, even the assistance of an adult can be very tricky because you're constantly moving and being swept away. Look at the shining on their ears, the sun reflecting off of their very wet, newly wet ears. All kinds of excitement. Look at this. Trumpeting, flapping around. This must be what the little ones look forward to the most, I'm sure. I mean, you very rarely see them so jovial and happy playing around, rolling around. Often elephants can't really roll around in the harder the soil. These ones are all younger ones, so they're quite light, but the bigger elephants particularly only really get an opportunity to behave like this in the water. Jen, they look like little kids playing in the water. In fact, that's pretty much what they are. I mean, they're not people, of course, but they are young elephants, and that's just like us as children, love to have a good time, and they're all kind of hanging around together, pushing, shoving, splashing, playing, behaving very similarly to how human children would as well. Taking advantage of the fact that the matriarch has brought them to this watering hole. They really don't want to leave. She's kind of just feeding behind us at some distance now, but not worried, allowing the little ones to have a little bit of fun. But you'll see when she is ready to go, they'll all, I'm sure, be a little bit disappointed, but they'll all end up leaving and following her command. Probably with a thick bottom lip, as many children can do. What a scene though, hey? I mean, Tswalu sitting at that watering hole and a leopard just came down and surprised her. A large herd of elephants surprising us. Look at them climbing on top of one another. There is a bigger one that's in the middle of the group there, kind of just keeping a safe eye. There's some real little ones in there as well. Look at splashing, throwing their trunks around, pushing and pulling, all fun and games. Kaya, 12 years old, can they swim from birth? And the answer to your question is no, not quite like these ones have been doing now. They'll probably hang around in the shallows. I mean, elephants are actually reasonably good swimmers, particularly for their size, but it is something that they'll have to develop, very similar to walking. And look at this one, left, kind of ran back in, decided it's too hot on the shore, but going back in. But you'll see they have to develop. They're not ready to leave yet. The ability to swim. Just like they have to develop the ability to use their trunks and develop the ability to really walk properly. They're really showing off now. I mean, those few that left, it's kind of like they left, decided it was too hot on the banks, and they went running back into the water, decided there's still a bit of time left for some more fun and some more playtime. Just going to stop and listen a little bit. Let me answer Olivia's question before I sit in silence quickly. Olivia, do crocodiles kill the baby elephants? I mean, in a watering hole like this, the presence of all these elephants kind of all together will be a super intimidating area for a crocodile to move into, and it'll actually avoid this, particularly with the observation of the rest of the bigger elephants. If a crocodile did try and come and take one of them down, that crocodile is going to have no chance. The bigger elephants will grab it with their trunks and chase it away. However, if they come down to the side of the watering hole and there is a little one that's drinking, a crocodile may very likely try and take it. But it runs the risk of, if it holds on too long and allows one of the bigger elephants to get too close, a bigger elephant will kill a crocodile, particularly if it manages to grab that crocodile with its trunk, or even stand on it or stab it with one of those tusks. Crocodile's got to be very wary about taking a baby elephant, although it may if it gets the right opportunity. You'll see a couple of the little ones, particularly the ones that are throwing their trunks around, that are loving trying to learn how to use their trunks. They can't really use it to drink either, so they'll have to put their whole heads down into the water to drink. I'm feeling incredibly jealous of these elephants now. They're looking nice and cool. I mean, I'm having a great time, but I'm nowhere near as cool as these guys. It's sizzling hot out here, and it's, 8:15 already? Probably close to high 30s. wildebeest, they're having a wild time in here. They are in no rush to leave. The bigger one, that matriarch who had that collar on, she's just happy feeding. I think she's also really glad to see everybody having such a good time. They may even do this maybe later on this evening. We did touch on the fact that it takes an elephant an incredibly long time to cool down and to heat up. So once they've cooled down, they will probably spend a bit of time feeding, and then because it is going to be such a hot day, they might heat up quicker today and maybe even head back towards a watering hole this afternoon to do something similar. I mean, they would have been perfectly fine if they didn't come and have this swim today. They would have found other ways of keeping themselves cool. But that's an amazing thing about those matriarchs. I mean, they plan their movements so well. I mean, today she would have known that it's going to be a hot day, come into the watering hole around this time when it is starting to warm up, allow everybody to have a bath and a drink so that they can actually spend a bit of time feeding before it gets too hot. And she'll know exactly where the food is and the shade is today, and then maybe even where the next watering hole is, to allow everybody to have a great time and cool themselves down like this. And this is knowledge that gets passed on into this herd. And there'll be a few younger females that are playing in here, and those females will be with this herd forever, and they'll very likely remember the knowledge that gets passed on. And as I said, I haven't seen that collared elephant through here before. There's a chance that some of these little ones have never been into this property before, never been into this watering hole. So a really good place for them to learn, and I'm sure this is a memory that'll stick with them for a long time. So interestingly, one of the bigger females actually came through to the watering hole. She'd been throwing some sand on herself, kind of gave the signal, and everybody, well, not everyone, but a lot of them have left. These ones are now kind of just taking their time, using the last little bit of time to have a drink. Yeah, so with the majority of these elephants moving off, I'm probably going to move off as well, start looking in some different areas for any other interesting things.
Join our Explorers program so we can keep on sharing nature with the world. For a monthly subscription, you will have the opportunity to win fantastic WildEarth expeditions, have access to an animal identification app, receive weekly highlights from our shows, and much more. All the money will go to keeping these live safaris on air, which in turn connects a global population with nature.
Join us around the fire as we have our very first WildEarth Explorers fireside chat.
And what that means is that if you are an explorer, we're inviting you to come and join us so we can chat about the greatest highlights of 2020.
We will be chatting about our favorite characters and what they have been up to during the course of this year.
And if you would like to join us, head over to our Explorers page and subscribe. Don't miss out. This fireside chat will be on the 13th of December at 7:30 p.m. Central African Time, straight after Sunset Safari.
WildEarth is launching our brand new Explorer program with an opportunity to win a very special WildEarth expedition. The lucky winner will get a behind-the-scenes WildEarth experience at the magnificent andBeyond Ngala Tainted Safari Camp. The prize includes a 3-night stay for you and a friend with a chance to sleep out in the unique Ngala treehouse. Become a WildEarth explorer and stand a chance to win this and many other prizes. Terms and conditions apply.
My name is Ross and I'm a field guide at andBeyond Phinda Private Game Reserve. I love getting questions from guests on WildEarth because I love sharing and learning information about nature with new people, and it also makes me feel like you're all joining me in real life. If you want to ask a question on WildEarth, then you need to register on our website. Once registered, go to our live safari page and submit your question below our live feed.
You've just seen Tlalamba escape behind our vehicle. She's not coming. You're going to see a structure that you love in a second. She gave it such a look as well. It's Hosanna's pump house. She looked at it as if she knew. Why won't you sit by the pump house and give us all some fond memories? Hmm? And we're just gonna sit here.
Live at the moment.
There we go. Oh, resting in any bit of shade that she can find as she moves along. Now, I was finding it very, very interesting that she used that road that connects Philemon's cut line to Treehouse Dam. It's a road that we use to go to the hyena den as well. But it's interesting that she uses that because it's a road that Shidulu uses very, very, very frequently. And she certainly was marking as she went along. I suspect that might be their boundary. And also, she went towards Rebecca's road, a road that Shidulu uses very often. When Shidulu usually you come from Treehouse Dam, use that through road and go up Rebecca's. When Tlalamba came towards that Rebecca's road junction, she turned and came on Philemon's dip instead, which is a little bit to the east. There's not a lot of space separating the two roads, especially now at this junction. Maybe just 50 to 100 meters separating them. I think this is the ambiguous zone between Rebecca's and Philemon's dip. And that Treehouse Dam through road is one that they both use and that they both send mark on. Oh, what's gotten her attention? I love when this happens because we don't have to drive in when something's gotten our attention. We're already sitting here quietly. And we're no distraction at all. Lots of things hang out in this drainage. This is Philemon's dip. It's called Philemon's dip because it's a dip. And she's at that dip. There's lots of things, little things in that drainage, and she's been known to take little stuff, not just after the big prey items. Seen her take one of the female nyalas though before, fully grown female nyala. Couldn't hoist it, however. She likes scrub hairs. Seen her hunt water thickneys. Let's just be quiet and watch her for a little bit. Christina, you say you can watch her all day long. Did you see how she was watching you there, Christina? That's why I said let's just be quiet and watch for a little bit and see what she's doing, where she's going. We can still see through the gaps, so I'm not going to move. I'm not sure what she's up to, whether she's hunting. You can just see her further to the right. There you can see her rosettes. This car's handbrake is not doing so well. Let's hope we don't roll down. Olivia, you'd like to know how old she is? She's 3. She was born in 2017, end of 2017, November. Three-year-old princess. once we see a little bit less intent on something, then we'll move. Be good for us again to patch a shade as well. But for now, let's just wait it out. It's like I said, lots of Franklin's scrub hairs and things like that in this drainage. Duikers also like to hang out in this drainage, this one particularly. So maybe she'll be... Oh. Almost got a slender mongoose on camera. Almost escaped the jaws of Tlalabo, the gaze of her. Anyway, let me send you over to Dan now while I watch what this girl gets up to.
Welcome back, everybody. We left that big watering hole, and not so far away there's a small little mud wallow, and an even larger herd of elephants was here, kind of splashing around. I counted over 40, and you can kind of see in the background there, they're all starting to move off. The females have kind of decided that it is time to move off. They've had enough time in this watering hole, and it's certainly been a morning for elephants. They are everywhere, and it is amazing how these herds of elephants come and they go. Hey, they just go where they're pleased. They follow water and food in different seasons. They'll hang around in different areas. Looks like two other younger bulls that haven't been so wet are kind of coming in. Let's see what happens here. If they don't come and have a splash and a swim, really cool themselves down. But it looks like the majority of the herd has kind of moved off, particularly all the little ones. They actually went running out of here. Actually, I think there's another herd that's coming through here, a separate one. They haven't been wet yet, and they're coming in quite quickly. So let's see them. I'm sure they're going to come and splash. And Busani is elephant skin. Does it react to snake bites? Let's stick with that. And I mean, if a snake did manage to bite an elephant, like maybe a black mamba or anything, they've got incredibly strong venom. But I mean, an elephant's got such thick skin. There's the chance of the snake's fangs actually getting through that layer and actually into the elephant itself is very low. So no, they're not too worried about snakes. Have a look at these ones coming around and have a little roll around. So it's kind of come to the more muddy spot. I mean, this isn't really drinking water at all, particularly after that first herd of about 40 came through here. There's not much water in it as well. They would have kind of disturbed it all, make it very muddy and sandy, and that's not so nice to drink. However, look at them. They're splashing themselves, putting that mud all over themselves, caking themselves, and ensuring that that cooler layer stays on them. Look at the little one, hey? Going in exactly the same place as that female. I'm sure that's its mother right next to it. Let's see if that little one, doesn't go into the watering hole. I've put its head in there, cool down. That one's got quite a good use of its trunk though. See how it's able to actually pick up some water. It might be just under 2 years old. Hammond, have I ever seen an adult elephant rolling around in the mud? I have indeed. And we might actually even see it here. I'm wondering if one of these bigger cows or the older females might not roll around. I mean, that's the only way that they're really going to cover themselves in mud is by rolling around. And I mean, the mud and the water is nowhere near as hard and uncomfortable as the ground. So it's actually quite soft. And even a fully grown male will be able to roll around in this mud without even hurting himself. I mean, if a big male were to lie down on the harder ground, because of his size and his weight, he may actually even do some damage to his ribs. But in the mud where it's much softer and can actually take his body weights comfortably, he will also roll around. And even the bigger and older elephants will they'll use this as a time to enjoy themselves. Sometimes you think older elephants are only grumpy, but you'll see even them having a great time in these watering holes. Sonia, what is my best experience with an elephant? And It's quite a tricky question to answer. I'm actually just going to quickly reverse. There's two little babies that are pushing and shoving each other. I'll get back to your question, what is my favorite experience with an elephant? And it's a tricky question to answer. Simply, you almost have to have categories. What is your favorite elephant sighting at a watering hole, interactions with animals? I mean, watching a large herd of 40 elephants come down to a small little mud wallow and being at about 30 meters away or so is truly special. So this is an amazing sighting. And huge herds of elephants. I think the biggest herd around here that I've seen, probably would have been several herds together. Almost 100 of them, or around 100 of them, coming down to a watering hole, particularly when they're very thirsty. You'll see them coming down with incredible speed with this huge dust cloud behind them. That is got to be one of my highlights, and particularly this category, coming down, drinking, covering themselves in mud and water to cool down. So seeing a huge number of elephants, and as I said, the largest that I got was probably around 100. In Botswana, though, I remember seeing herds or huge groups of elephants, well over 100. That's also just an absolute spectacle to see these huge animals in such numbers. It's quite amazing. I mean, there were over 40 elephants here at this mud wallow in the past 5 minutes or so, and now it's kind of gone still, completely quiet. They've all moved off to do their own thing, feed, scratch themselves, maybe cover themselves in some sand, and back to being peaceful and quiet at this mud wallow. I'm sure this isn't going to be the only activity that it has today. I'm sure there are going to be lots of other animals like buffalo as well that'd love to come and roll around. Buffalo may even spend the whole day lying in the water to keep cool. I'm going to keep going, seeing what else we can find in the shady parts and in the water. I'm going to send you to Deirdre at Tswalu.
So we've just come across this beautiful flower. It's absolutely stunning. It almost looks a little bit orchid-like, but it is known as... There's two names for it. One is called bowstring hemp, which probably doesn't make too much sense. And then a lot of other people also know it as mother-in-law's tongue. So you're seeing the flower part here, and then at the back, all these little sharp green points sticking out of the ground are actually the leaves. It's got a very, very light smell. It's not a very potent smell at this stage, but I know sometimes at night you actually smell them quite a lot. And that means that they're relying on nocturnal insects like moths to find them by their smell in order to go in there, look for a little bit of a nectar meal. And you can actually see, I'm going to pull one little flower tube out, and you can see a relatively long tube, or in order for a moth's proboscis, that sort of feeding tube, to fit in there. So very often something with a tube that long is going to have a specific moth, most likely a hawk moth, that will come along to look for that nectar meal. And in that process, the anther will drop the little pollen on the back of the moth there. So we said an unusual name for this is a bowstring hemp. What I did a little bit earlier was I broke off a leaf and I mashed it nice and properly there. It was actually sopping wet about 5 minutes ago, and just with this nice breeze, it has already dried. But you can see how fibrous it is and relatively strong. Very, very difficult for me to break it. But many years back, the local people that were in this area, the San Bushmen, they would then use this for a bowstring for their bow and arrows. So they'd take it, they'd strip it, and then take a couple of fibers. They start twisting, and they'll mold them and twist them into each other until they've got a string that is long enough that they can attach to the two ends of the arc that they make the bow with. And then typically take, in these areas, a raisin bush, which typically has nice long straight stems. They'd peel that outer layer of bark off, and it would be relatively pliable if it's still living. And then they'd bend that, they'd pull the bow taut and allow that to dry. And then with their arrow shafts, also generally made out of the raisin bush, and a little sharp, either a stone or some kind of a tool on the end for the arrow. They would then often find under one of the trees, I'll see if I can find you one day one of those, a little beetle grub that they would then use. That beetle grub, they would rub it on and it would be poisonous, and that would be the poison that would go into the animal and affect the animal. But just look how strong that is. Oh, I can almost break it, but that's because it's still wet. It hasn't been dried, but the whole plant together, you really, really do struggle to pull it apart. So, Critter Freak is commenting that they are gorgeous flowers. They absolutely are. There's 3 or 4 underneath. Oh, there's actually about 5 or 6 underneath this tree. And the mother-in-law's tongue does typically decide to be in a shady spot under a tree. And you can actually see here it's nicely covered by both a camel thorn and a river honeythorn that's just made a nice little thicket for it. It's quite a hardy plant. The leaves are very, very hardy, so not necessarily very palatable. Generally, the animals don't tend to want to eat this. You can actually see no sort of foraging signs on it. I mean, if an animal wants it, it would just chop the top off, but I see none of that this side. I'm going to send you across to Tristan so you can get a leopard update.
Well, we're still sitting here with our little boy. He's been fast asleep, and all of a sudden has just woken up. I think he heard that you guys were coming, and so he's decided to kind of watch and wake up a little bit. But he's really been having, I think, the best nap. He was kind of out cold with us. Unfortunately for us, though, we've had very little shade at all, so we've been absolutely blasted by sun for the last 45 minutes while he slept, which has been delightful. These are the things that you've got to go through sometimes in order to get the kind of sightings that you want. It's just about putting in a bit of time, I suppose, and as much as it's hot, it's nice just to sit with him, and nice to see that he's that we've got to spend so much time of late. I know he hasn't really done anything this morning, and it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to a lot of people to sit in 40-degree heat and watch a leopard sleep. But I've had so little time with him in the past that it's just been really nice to kind of spend a quiet morning with him in many respects. Hopefully he'll be a little bit more active at some point during the course of the day, or even this afternoon. I'm hoping that because of how hot it is, he's not going to move very far. But even if he does walk 10 meters in this bush, it's going to be really tricky to find him again. It's not an easy place to look for cats, but we'll try and come out straight away and see if we can pick him up, because there's always potential for his mom to come back this afternoon, or for him to move a little bit, to get up to something. Young male leopards typically have a little bit of personality and are playful, particularly if they sleep for a long period of time. So who knows, maybe we'll get lucky this afternoon with him being more active than he has been this morning, that's for sure. Greg, I'm not sure what would give you that idea, but yes, they are my favorite animal. There's so many things about them that make them a firm favorite. And this particular job, that in terms of doing this, drives for WildEarth, has enabled that passion to grow exponentially by allowing time with these cats, much more than you would get when you're with guests. So, leopards were always a passion when I was a guide driving guests, but you got to balance that out with everything else that people have come to see, and your time frame spent with the cat is that much shorter. But with this job, it allows us to spend hours and hours and hours and hours with these cats, and from there it's kind of learnt a lot about them, and I'll always be thankful for the time that I've managed to have over the course of the last 4 years, being able to spend sometimes 7-8 hours a day with a leopard is a pretty special thing. So they are by far my favorites. I mean, I know a lot of the time they maybe not as active as something like wild dogs, or they don't kind of come out as much, but I think there's the thrill of trying to find them, knowing that they can be one of the hardest to find at times. Other days they're very easy, like this morning with Kalamba, where she just walks out onto the road in front of you. These things happen, and we get lucky with that kind of stuff. But it's the couple of the fact that they habituated in this area, that we get to spend long periods with them. We started to notice behaviors that are not quite what's written in books. Seeing the development of females into adulthood, like Kalamba, where she's going to have her first cubs, seeing, cubs with Kachava for the first time, you're seeing Tundi's cubs, all these kinds of things have been hugely interesting, and there's gained a lot of insight into leopards' lives by being allowed to spend so much more time with them than an average safari guide would. It's been a pretty epic ride, that's for sure, and I've loved every second of it. Like I say, I've learned so much about these cats just from my time here by being able to spend that time with them. We've seen how much more sociable they are than we gave them credit for initially, how active they are at random times of the day, and that nighttime is not always a peak of activity. Often people think with leopards that they're just busy at night and constant, but when we were doing a lot of our nighttime work, we found that they do a lot of this during the middle portions of the night. They actually don't walk around all that much, and random little things like that. So it's been a very, very, very special portion of my life, being able to spend time with them, and hopefully going forward I'll be able to spend time with them for a longer period of time and see how it all goes. It's not to say that I don't enjoy guiding guests. I really do enjoy that side of it. There's something about having people with you and their reactions and their emotions that they show, but it does kind of change the dynamic a little bit. I can sit here in 40-degree heat in the sun, get roasted, and it's uncomfortable, but it is what it is, and we can do it because you guys can bounce to other locations and see all kinds of other things. Whereas with guests that's a little bit trickier. So it's nice to be able to do this and to have that relationship with the cats in these areas, that you start to really understand their movements and where they go, what they do, how they are affecting each other, how there's been changes over the years. I think that's a very, very cool part of being able to follow an elusive cat like this that many struggle to see across the world. So hopefully that answers your question. That's a very long-winded answer for a pretty simple question. Sorry about that. I drifted a little bit. But like I say, they are a passion, so if I can spend every day with them, that's a good day. Obviously that's not always possible, but we try our best to find them as much as we can, and for you guys to see them as well and learn with us, which is always cool. Now, talking of leopards, our leopard is fast asleep. I think I'm going to let him be and come back this afternoon. In the meantime, though, let's send you across to one of my other little favorites, Kalamba with Trishala.
I've just seen Kalamba pounce at a tiny little sparrow, which was very amusing. She is missioning. She's after a little snack, this girl. Not after anything big. She's keeping an eye out on the small stuff. And how I know is because she goes around the bushes and sniffs the bottom of the bushes. And what would be at the bottom of the bushes? Things like scrub hair. Hello, girl. You gonna give me a walk by? Hi. Missioning. She's actually going to come out on the opposite road now, it seems. Let's see if we'll get a gap through here. No, Tristan is preaching such truths and how lucky we are to be able to spend time with these leopards. I'm not going to be able to get through here, so my best bet is to go around. She's walked up that direction, but I can't see her at all. She walks straight up this path in front of me. That one. Yeah, like I was saying, it's such a privilege. I mean, just the fact that we can, one, find a leopard so easily, and then know, oh, look, it's Tlalamba. Oh, look, it's Shidulu. That is such a privilege. That's the type of thing that I'll have to keep telling my grandchildren. It'll be one of those stories. You think you know your cat, but let me tell you, when I was young, I could tell leopards like this. That's exactly how I'll do it. Looks like we've got eyes on her again. There she goes. Zay, you'd like to know who's my favorite leopard in the Sabi Sands? That's a horrible question, Zay, but I'm going to tell you who it is. It's Hosanna. Obviously, we don't get to see him as much, but I spent getting to know leopards. I got to know Hosanna best and most well and most intimately. So he is my favorite leopard, but it's a horrible thing to choose, Tristan will tell you. Very difficult to choose. Tlalamba, I must say, is second. And hang on, let's not get us into a ditch here. Tlalamba would be second. And then I think that I would say you love it when people all want to be your presenter too. After Tlalamba, I really like Shidulu. But guys, these are very loose favorites that I'm choosing here because it's very difficult to choose favorites ever when it comes to leopards. There's some serious bundu bashing going on here, and considering this, oh, there she is. Let's get a last view. She's just walking through there. Oh, it seems like we have lost her. Well, I'm going to sit here for a little bit longer and hopefully she'll pop out.
Welcome back to the Kalahari. We are just sitting in such a spectacular landscape, just taking in all these sights and sounds. So we're just going to absorb them for the next couple of minutes. Isn't that just the most spectacular view? What a beautiful morning. A little bit windy, but it's been a fantastic morning.
Well, we're still with our little fella. He's fast asleep and taking it very easy, and I'll take it as a win that he's sleeping this morning. I feel like we've done good. It's been a thick block. We off-roaded a little bit, and he still didn't lose us. So that's a good progress in many ways, that's for sure. I don't think he's going to go far, so I've kind of marked a pin for myself, because finding this afternoon will be quite tricky. It looks a certain way now, but in the afternoon, when all the shadows change, things can look vastly different. Trees start to amalgamate and look as the same, and so sometimes even we kind of drop pins for ourselves just to be able to know exactly where we're going and how we're going to get back to them, especially in this particular block. So we'll try again this afternoon with him. We also got good news that Tundi's little one was seen. We had tracks for him, as I was saying earlier, and he was seen exactly where we had the tracks. Apparently he's was also passed out, much like this one is, in a thicket. So there's quite a lot of potential around. There's the two young boys, Kalamba. Also, I must also just give an update quickly, because last night I forgot to, that the sighting of Monzo, which is a female leopard, a lot of you won't know or wouldn't have heard about. She's a leopardess from the east. So you'll find she's an offspring of Nkanyeni, and so yesterday evening they saw Monzo, and then Monzo walked northwards, and they had a crazy sighting of Monzo with mom, Nkanyeni, and her new cub, which is a little young male apparently, and the three of them were together on a kill. But unfortunately it's right up against the Kruger boundary, and this morning they all crossed, by the sounds of things, into Kruger itself. But really cool to hear that all three of them are still around. Monzo is another one that hadn't been seen for a little bit, so good to hear that Monzo's kind of in the area too. It's very healthy leopard dynamic at the moment within the northern Sabi Sands. There's a huge supply of females and males. It's crazy actually how many leopards we've got running around at the moment, and how they're all managing to fit themselves in. It's certainly going to be an interesting kind of period going forward. As soon as we see the likes of Kalamba, Kara, and Zutini, they wanting to have cubs, it's going to really kind of be interesting to see how everything shifts. The other update that maybe some of you would like to hear about is Siseka. It's not a leopard we've seen a lot of, but has been seen a few times. I think the last sighting was with Steve or Lauren, I can't remember which one. But she was seen yesterday morning, up in Manyeleti. So that's good news to hear an update on her. Beautiful little leopard as well. And glad that she's found a space that seemingly is unoccupied, because it sounds like Ukutula, which is another female that was from the Shaluva lineage. She's not been seen for a while, and so it seems like Siseka has now moved up into that area. So lots happening, lots of shifting and changing, which is what we expect. And hopefully we'll eventually kind of see everything, settling down, and we'll see where cubs are born and all kinds of other things. But it's going to be a good bumper year for our leopard population. Not that this year hasn't been, that's for sure. Bronson, that's not necessarily true. So other cats can climb fairly well. I mean, lions climb just as well as a leopard does. It's not so much the climbing, it's the descending that is always the issue. Cheetah also able to climb. I've seen cheetah in the Masai Mara up trees that, are dead straight and tall. And they're up on the top there looking out. So they're all able to climb pretty well. It's coming down that they all struggle with. And in the case of lions, it's because of the weight factor. Lions are so much heavier that they really, really struggle with the kind of getting the grip and the balance of everything. The tail of a lion is not quite the same as that of a leopard. And so you find when lions come down, they typically end up in a heap at the bottom. Cheetah as well, probably due to the fact that their claw structures and foot structures are slightly different, and that controlling of the descent is almost impossible. Their claws are not nearly as sharp as what a leopard's is, and I don't think they dig into the bark nearly as well, and so they end up sliding rather than actually controlling that descent coming down. But it's a fallacy that big cats can't climb. Like I say, you put a leopard in a tree with a kill and go and watch a pride of lions, you'll see even big adult male lions climbing trees. And sometimes if you go to parks like Lake Manyara, Queen Elizabeth in Uganda, even the Masai Mara Serengeti ecosystem, you'll often find fully grown male lions sitting in the tops of big tall trees. So it's not a thing that they can't do. It's just that they prefer not to. And so leopards have evolved and adapted to be able to use that as a niche for themselves to try and keep their food and things like that. But they do lose out sometimes to lions particularly. And if you look at jaguars and pumas or mountain lions, they also can climb. So lots happens with these things. All right, we're going to send you off to Trish. It sounds like she's bumbling about.
So, we have left Kalamba. We thought she was going into a Tamboti thicket for one. And she was missioning quite hard, and other vehicles were all trying to get in. And with a Tamboti thicket, it's a protected plant, so we don't drive over Tambotis. You know, normally if we're driving through, we can drive over a combretum, and then the combretum will spring back up. We can do that for most plants. With a Tamboti, we don't do that, and with the leadwood, we don't do that. That's because they're protected plants, protected trees. So we decided, let's leave her, let her be. It's such a small space anyway, so those two vehicles there should still give her sufficient space to be able to hunt. But we did see the wildebeest family. I've taken to counting them every day now, just in case an extra one is dropped. So this morning we counted 4. It's also nice to notice or to see that they've kept the 4 that they've had this whole season. So let's have a look at these wildies. I'm just going to go around so that we can actually see the little calves. Okay, I still see 2 on that end, and I know that there's 2 on the other side. When we drove in, I could see them. Gorgeous, the little things. They are just too cute. It's good to see that when they were suckling, everybody knows exactly where to go now. When we first saw the newborn ones, they weren't sure where to go, and they kept going to the front legs, which was just too cute. Too cute. Yes, I see you. I see you, sir. They're just enjoying the shade. My goodness, it is seriously hot. Olivia, you'd like to know how long I've been a guide for? I've been a guide for 2.5 years. Yes, but my interest in animals, particularly science, has gone on for much longer than that. I'd say academically at least 10 years. It makes me feel old when I said it like that. And then I worked as a research scientist for about 3 years. Spots of studying in between after I completed my degree, and then then I started here. All my years are all coalescing into one big WildEarth year. It's been a magnificent experience, something I could never ever have anywhere else. And I think the most precious thing about it is the time we get to spend with the animals, and the time we get to spend together with the animals, because now you know me. And you don't just know me and what I know about this animal, you know things about my personality, and it's a kind of a little bubble of our own where we know so much about these animals and about each other. I think it's really precious, and it's been a magnificent experience. Like I said, my grandchildren are going to hear about 100 times. When they say it was hot, I'll be like, let me tell you what hot is. Magnificent. What a glorious drive. So much variety. Just a wonderful day out here in Africa. So thanks, guys, for your questions and your comments. We'll see you this afternoon.
This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Well, a fitting way to start our afternoon safari with a little impala lamb that's beginning its journey into life out here in the wilderness, which we know is fraught with danger and all kinds of things, which means that we have lots and lots of promise for this afternoon, because these impalas are not too far away from where there were lions and leopards this morning, which is what we hopefully are going to be able to find at some point during the course of this afternoon. You'll find that these guys are going to eventually go up